The main character looks forward mysteriously and intensely, covering part of his face with his hand. With the starry sky and the full moon as a backdrop, there is a high-rise building with a neon sign written in hieroglyphics. A middle-aged man, in the company of girls, congratulates the main character. The man and the main character clink half-full wine glasses. A bright blush is visible on the man's face. His eyes are wide open, and his mouth is slightly open in obvious surprise. Chen looks at the man with absolute calm, rejecting the compliment he made earlier. The man hesitated out of discomfort and offered to drink more alcohol, claiming that Chen could trust him and not worry about anything. Chen looks with disapproval at his companion, who continues to drink in an attempt to distract himself. The main character looks closely at his reflection in a wine glass and thinks about his past and his name. His reflection in the glass becomes blurry, and he confidently asserts that he is no longer Chen Anson and that his only joy is... He remains seated on the sofa in the company of a man and several women, considering them hypocrites for wearing masks. Chen meets Ms. Zhan, who immediately realizes that his wife is very lucky. The man points out that Chen is single and currently an eligible bachelor, which embarrasses Miss Zhan. Sitting on the sofa with the other characters, Mrs. Zhan notices Chen's sophistication and high standards. She has a business card in her hand and is curious about the potential opportunity to call her main character's attention. Mrs. Zhan approaches him and continues to shower him with compliments, talking about the importance of balancing family and career. Chen listens to her in silence and casts a curious look at her after she leans against him. She carefully hands him her business card and asks him to take it. The main character looks at her with a slight smile as she rejoices that he has taken her business card. There is a bottle of alcohol on the table, and several heroes offer to drink to Chen and his skills. In the context of the night city, several cars are seen wanting to take the main character, but he refuses, claiming that his house is quite close. The main character sighs deeply and approaches his car, holding his jacket in one hand and grasping the door handle with the other. Chen is distracted from the car when he hears a fairly loud meow. Under his car, near the wheels, there is a small red kitten that keeps meowing. Chen takes it in his arms, regretting that the kitten was lucky that the main character noticed it and the kitten was not harmed. He releases the red kitten and it runs away defiantly. Turning to look at the main character one last time, the bright headlights belonging to Chen's car stand out intensely. The main character himself is sitting quietly with his eyes closed in his car, relaxed in the front seat. Chen opens his eyes and turns his gaze toward the window of his car. On the street, that same red kitten can be seen with two more adult cats. Chen looks away, thinking about his own family, whom he has not visited for a long time and wants to do so. He starts the car and places his hand on the gearbox, preparing to drive home. Chen sits with his seatbelt fastened and reaches into his shirt pocket. Among the large number of business cards, he sees Miss Zhan's business card with a trace of a kiss. He looks long and thoughtfully at the large number of business cards in his hand. After a while, with a single movement, he throws away all the business cards he previously had in his hand. All the business cards scatter in a chaotic manner and fall to the ground near Chen's car. Chen starts the car, causing some cards to fly even further, and he simply runs over some of them. The main character's car drives further and further away to the rhythm of the song, and the business cards remain lying on the ground. The lights of the night city illuminate the empty road. Many skyscrapers can be seen in the background. Keeps one hand on the steering wheel, and the other supports his chin, looking out the window and listening to the song. Then he returns his gaze to the road with a bored expression on his face. His hand firmly holds the steering wheel. He confidently increases his speed, following the lyrics of the song for 500 miles. A huge truck comes to meet him, blinding him and illuminating the entire street with its headlights. Keeps one hand on the steering wheel, and the other supports his chin, looking out the window and listening to the song. Then he returns his gaze to the road with a bored expression on his face. His hand firmly holds the steering wheel. He confidently increases his speed, following the lyrics of the song for 500 miles. A huge truck comes to meet him, blinding him and illuminating the entire street with its headlights.
The main character's eyes open in shock. Horror and fear are visible in them. He did not expect this. A girl in a long dress and on a bicycle reprimands him that smoking is prohibited here. Chen closes his eyes and holds his head with one hand, which suddenly begins to hurt. He opens one eye and tries to understand what exactly happened to him and where he is. A girl in a long dress stands in front of him with a look of surprise on her face. When he does not recognize her, the people in the background are surprised by his carelessness. The guy sitting on the bench coughs visibly, causing confusion in Chen, who is sitting next to him. His eyes widen in total misunderstanding. It seems to him that everything that is happening is a dream. The main character remains perplexed by what is happening and suddenly realizes something. Under the incomprehensible look of his companion, he sees his reflection in the sign next to the bench where they are sitting. His eyes grow even larger and a drop of sweat appears on his face. He freezes in total shock upon realizing that he has been reborn. The shock on the protagonist's face grew greater and greater. They do not understand at all what is happening. The dark-haired girl looked down awkwardly, maintaining her silence, waiting for at least some reaction from Chen. The main character is grabbed by the face with a hand, saying that his behavior is unusual and that this must not be done under any circumstances. A tall, unknown guy squeezes his fist and says he hopes the main character has a happy future and recovers from a broken heart. Ansen looks at him with a long, piercing and dissatisfied gaze, saying nothing. He is annoyed by the stranger's stubbornness and his words. His friend sits with him on the bench in confusion, not understanding what happened to the main character and why he is like this, and Ansen himself holds a cigarette in his hands, looking at the tall guy. The protagonist's facial expression becomes immensely gloomy, and with seriousness and coldness, he asks the tall, unknown guy who he is. Horror is visible on the tall guy's face at such a reaction, and he decides that he needs to leave, because the hero does not deserve so much attention, and the girl simply looks silently at Ansen in complete shock. The girl finally decides to speak, noting that if the main character decides to ignore her, then that is his business, but she made it clear that she does not want a relationship now and that his opinion will not change anything. The hero looks at her worriedly when she mentions that she will tell his mother about his smoking habit. He cannot remember who he is, but he is afraid of his mother finding out about his bad habit. Ansen is extremely upset and does not understand how the girl knows his mother. His friend still looks at him with incomprehension, and the tall guy gets angrier by the minute. He looks forward with curiosity when he is handed a bottle of water and informed that they will come later to notify him of the registration. Ansen rejects the offer, and the tall guy complains that the main character is posing as a tough guy out of nowhere. The girl remains silent and does not understand the hero's behavior. The girl gradually moves her hand, in which she holds a bottle of water, toward the bench, while Ansen looks at her surprised, but with some interest. The girl leaves the bottle on the bench and with a look of dissatisfaction and evident resentment on her face, turns around and leaves, but the hero does not comment on it. The main character watches the girl and the tall guy ride away on a bicycle and asks him if he really confessed his feelings to her. His friend puts his hand on his shoulder and asks him to stop ignoring him, while the hero realizes that this is the girl he was in love with when he was a schoolboy. Ansen directs his inquisitive gaze to the guy next to him and asks him directly who he is. His best friend, Wan Sibo, grabs him by the t-shirt, shouting at him that he is his best friend and that he always smoked with him. Ansen says that Sibo went to Iraq, which makes his friend even angrier. They walk down a typical Chinese street where there are many stores and three-story houses. His friend asks him not to drink so much and to pay attention, and Ansen understands that now, on a white sign near the door, there is something written in hieroglyphics. The main character is congratulated on successfully graduating from school. With a slight smile and his eyes closed, he is handed a graduation note. His friend is surprised that Ansen passed the first-level exam, and the hero mentions that he also passed the second-level exam without any problem. He looks at his smiling teacher, Lao Xiu, who will die of cancer, and Ansen will not be able to attend his funeral because he will be abroad in the future. Wan Sibo thanks the teacher for his notice, and the main character is convinced that he has truly gone back in time and suddenly realizes a red cigarette pack with golden hieroglyphics lies on the table next to a pen and a stack of papers, standing out as a bright spot. Ansen takes the cigarettes before the surprised gazes of the teacher and his friend and asks Lao Xiu to smoke less, who holds a pack of cigarettes in his hand and reminds him that teaching in high school is already a difficult process and that smoking will harm the teacher even more. The teacher looks at Ansen with evident misunderstanding, even with some surprise. Clearly, he did not expect such words from him. But then, Lao Xiu laughs slightly and tells the main character that he will smoke less in the future. Ansen says he will take away the cigarettes for educational purposes, which surprises his friend and teacher even more. The tall guy is indignant about how such an important character could be accepted into the university, but the girl from the bob cut tries to defend him, saying that their conflict is a misunderstanding, but the guy will remain indignant about the cigarettes. Xiao Rongyu is next to the girl with the bob cut, who continues to defend Ansen and tries to explain the reason for smoking. The guy interrupts her and calls the main character a criminal and a troublemaker. At that moment, Ansen and his friend appear behind him, surprised by the presence of their classmates. He approaches Xiao directly, leaning slightly towards her, which surprises the guy and the girl who are standing next to each other. Ansen asks her where she is studying now. Blushing slightly, she replies that she studies at Donghai University, and Ansen says he studies at the nearby University of Finance and Economics. The guy next to her tries to humiliate him, but nothing comes out. Ansen asks what time it is, after which Xiao Rongyu looks at her watch and says it is 5 o'clock sharp. The main character takes her hand and asks her where she bought the watch, and also insinuates that 520 means I love you. He pulls her away from Xiao, accusing him of trying to confess his feelings for the girl again. But Ansen does not react to this. He decides to leave while the tall guy yells at him irritably, and Xiao clumsily clings to her abyss. A loudspeaker is screwed to a high pole, from which sounds similar to music are heard. The rays of the setting sun shine brightly through the windows, illuminating an empty classroom where the Chinese flag stands out brightly on the wall. Ansen quietly leaves the school with a notice in his hand and looks at the uniformed school children walking nearby. He looks to one side and sees a crowd of boys playing basketball and trying to throw the ball into the hoop. The school children walking ahead communicate and laugh among themselves, discussing something interesting. The main character looks at the sun, which intensely illuminates his tired but relaxed face. He closes his eyes, enjoys the sun, and thinks that school is a peaceful place. Against the backdrop of a sunset sky with occasional patches of clouds, Ansen regrets that school has come to an end. The last rays of the bright sun illuminating the street fade away little by little with the sunset, giving way to the night, Anson walks next to his best friend and thinks that for the first time in several years, he has the opportunity to return home. Someone behind them says his name, causing Anson and Sibu to turn around and see who they are. The girl and the guy they met earlier at school, and he is not happy to see them again. Xiao approaches him on a bicycle and tells him that he and his friend did not write anything in their notebook for their classmates. The main character looks at her in silence, lowering his curious gaze slightly, studying Xiao. Xiao also looks at him fixedly, taking out a notebook for her classmates from the bicycle basket that is in the bag. She holds the notebook in her hand and hands it to Anson, asking him to write something as a keepsake for her. The tall guy looks at the main character with even greater irritation and dissatisfaction and awaits his actions. He demands that Anson write something nice instead of looking at Xiao, who is slightly blushing. Xiao warns Anson to stop looking at her, but the main character excuses himself by saying that he is only looking at the notebook. He opens the notebook for his classmates and begins to look at what was already written there previously. The notebook is full of wishes. A poem by William Yeats, which Gao Xilian wrote and passed off as her own, catches his attention. Xiao points with her pen to the blank sheet of paper in the notebook and demands that Anson write something instead of reading the whole notebook. After this, Anson decides to give the notebook to his best friend so he can write first. But his friend has not yet decided what to write and therefore feels embarrassed, blushing. His friend writes a wish to Xiao that she becomes more and more beautiful with age. The notebook returns to the hero's hands and Xiao writes at least something, but apart from the wish to remain young, nothing comes to mind. After thinking for a bit, the main character quietly begins to write his wishes in Xiao's notebook. He writes a short poem to her with a play on words. Xiao reads it, but the tall guy makes fun of him and the girl with the bob cut finds the poem unique. Xiao looks attentively and thoughtfully at the notebook and observes that the verse is quite well written. She notifies the hero that she will not tell his mother that he smokes, and the tall guy urges her to return home, citing the fact that it will soon grow dark. They see the group leave and his friend is indignant because Anson forced him to sign the notebook first. The main character teases him with words about his liking for Xiao, which his friend immediately denies. They walk together and the protagonist proposes going to McDonald's tomorrow, which surprises his best friend a lot. Anson explains the choice of the day by saying that tonight he will have a family dinner. Wan Sibo looks at the main character and asks if Anson can skip this dinner. Anson turns into an alley and leaves his friend alone, saying that he does not understand anything. His friend looks at him with misunderstanding and follows him with his gaze without saying a single word. The main character walks down a narrow alley, illuminated by a lantern and signs from various establishments. In the light of the lantern, Anson remembers several moments from his childhood, for example, when he and his mother lit sparklers. He also remembers that when he was a child, he would come home with a dirty school uniform, and his mother would reprimand him for it. When he was a teenager, his mother asked him to take food with him, but he rejected this kind gesture. Anson remembers sitting until late at night with a huge mountain of textbooks, doing his homework. The main character remembers the phone that was always by his side when he did his homework. He remembers that a middle-aged man from the club congratulated him in the future. The main character thinks about his childhood, his adolescence, and his future, stopping near the red door, which is closed behind a metal fence. He looks at this door and stands motionless. On the sides there are red signs on which something is written with black hieroglyphics. A slight smile plays on his lips and a lonely light bulb illuminates his face while he is at the entrance. He raises his hand toward the door, frozen by indecision, debating whether to knock or not. Anson stares at the door, weighing the pros and cons before knocking. At some point, he is overwhelmed by determination and knocks loudly on the door, demanding that his mother open it. His mother suddenly opens the door, sad because he shouts so loudly and always forgets his keys. Anson smiles mischievously and says that he wanted to call his mother, and she notes that he also speaks. His mother closes the door, and Anson complains that it is hot in the house and he needs to turn on the air conditioner. While wondering where his father is, he takes the air conditioner remote control in his hands, and his mother informs him that Dad is still at work and that Anson can manage the air conditioner on his own. Mom hands the main character a plate with several watermelon slices, at which Anson is surprised and freezes. He begins to eat actively and thank his mother, who tells him to eat calmly and not to get distracted. While he eats on the sofa, his mom asks him to take a shower later and to put his university admission documents on the table. Anson happily eats the watermelon, smiles, and is surprised, thinking that the watermelon still has the same familiar taste. In a tall building, in several apartments, the lights are on in the middle of a dark night. The main character's mother holds the university admission notice in her hand, smiles with pride, and is glad that there is now a student in her family. Anson is in the bathroom and listens to the plans for his future life that his mother has already made, thinking about his graduation from university and his grandchildren. The main character smiles ironically, looking in the mirror, knowing that his mother will not see her grandchildren for the next 35 years. He thinks that somehow he needs to dismiss his father, so he will not have problems with money for normal development. The main character is distracted from his thoughts by the noise coming from the living room of his apartment. Anson happily comes out of the shower and realizes that his father has already returned home. The protagonist's father is in the living room and unbuttons his shirt, confirming at the same time his return. Despite his obvious tiredness, something important catches the attention of Anson's father. His father takes the air conditioner remote control and adjusts the temperature to keep his family comfortable. Looking at the air conditioner, Anson notes how affectionate his father really is. The protagonista's angry mother bursts into the living room with her son's jacket and a pack of cigarettes, accusing the latter of smoking. Anson tries to justify to his parents that the teacher gave him cigarettes for successfully passing the exams, but the mother does not believe him and accuses the father of a lack of attention toward his son. The father says it is too early for Anson to smoke, and the mother adds that the father should also smoke less and that it is time for everyone to sit at the table. Only from one apartment a faint light is seen, which dilutes the darkness of the moonlit night. The main character's mother and father are sitting on the bed, and she asks her husband for money to take him to the university, and the father says that she should let her son go. The mother looks at her husband with concern and complains that with age her son began to listen to her less, although his parents always encouraged his ideas. The father points out that his son may not be the best student, but his intelligence will not let him fall and they need to support him. Anson's mother listens attentively to everything her husband says about her son's future. She looks away and sighs, lost in her own thoughts about her son. It begins to dawn on a normal Chinese street. The street lights are still on, and in the background, Anson's mother is heard realizing that he has grown up. On the nightstand in the main character's bedroom, there is an alarm clock indicating that it is time to get up. Anson lies distractedly in his bed, partially covered with a blanket, thinking about something of his own. Texto predeterminado. Anson turns his gaze toward the alarm clock, which sits quietly on the nightstand. Then he looks around the room, especially the manga bookshelf, and realizes that he is trapped in his past. A strong stream of water flows from the bathroom faucet into the sink. His mother's voice notes that Anson got up early today. The main character brushes his teeth calmly, looks at his tired mother, and tells her that he is hungry. His mother yawns and says that he can buy his own breakfast and that she is going to bed because sleeping is the most important thing. Anson says nothing, but thinks that this is clearly not the way to raise a son. The main character is near a street food stall in a playground and asks the price of an egg cake. After the seller's response, he is mentally surprised by such a low price and asks for 2 cakes for himself, wondering where the code is. The seller looks at him completely bewildered and does not understand what code he is talking about. The main character seems to receive an electric shock when he realizes that it is 2002 and you cannot pay with phones. Anson realizes that he has no money with him, his mother left him nothing, and the seller asks if he wants to buy cakes. The main character refuses and quickly invents the excuse that the tarts are harmful because his grandmother. He returns home disappointed, mentally complaining that the payment system and life in the past were extremely uncomfortable. Ensign stops abruptly and is distracted from his thoughts, paying attention to something in front of him. Xiao Rongyu is running in a tracksuit, clearly out of breath after a long run. Ensign calls Xiao, who immediately directs her attention to the protagonist when he calls her. She looks surprised at Ensign greeting her, not expecting to see him now at all. Xiao looks at him and wonders what he is doing here so early, because it is only 6:30 in the morning. A thought crosses her mind, but she doesn't have time to finish the idea that occurred to her. But she quickly interrupts him and tells him that she knows why he is there. Xiao puts her hands on her hips and repeats once again that she does not want a relationship right now. The main character freezes prostrate, not expecting such a conclusion from the girl. Xiao blushes and suggests that it was precisely to watch her that he got up so early, and Ensign finds this idea absolutely ridiculous. Xiao looks at the main character with crossed arms and asks him if yesterday he was trying to get her attention by ignoring her, to which Ensign remains silent. He stands awkwardly and listens to Xiao's diatribe that he is a good guy, but that she doesn't need a relationship, and only when they graduate will they be able to discuss this, and the main character realizes that this is precisely why they are not. Still unsatisfied, Xiao says that she doesn't want to get distracted, but thinks about the promise she made to herself during school that she wouldn't have a relationship, and the same goes for university. Xiao asks him not to comment on anything, because everything is clear, and Ensign agrees with her and says that she is smart. The main character invites her to breakfast, where they can talk, which surprises Xiao. She points out that she should invite him, because he helps her a lot with her studies. Ensign agrees with her and suggests meeting her at a shop near the police station that sells soy milk and fried beans, saying it will be delicious. Near the restaurant, with a bright yellow sign, there are several police officers and ordinary passers-by. An acquaintance of Xiao greets her and she returns the greeting happily and politely while the main character enjoys his favorite food. Uncle Zhang reprimands him because Ensign eats too much and does not understand the harm of overeating, and Xiao looks at him questioningly. While eating another dumpling, the main character states that he will be in perfect shape until he is 35, while Xiao, with skepticism, asks how he knows. Ensign explains to her that a few days ago he met a fortune teller, so he knows his future for sure and keeps eating. He said that he will be rich and successful, but unfortunately without a wife, because he has no marriage line, which makes Xiao blush. Xiao exhales indignantly and says that this is nonsense, because men quickly change their minds and feelings. Ensign says that a fortune teller taught him to read palm fortunes and explains to her that each palm pattern is unique and shows a person's destiny, and points out that the buns made by the owner or his wife will be different. He says that the owner's buns are smooth, but his wife makes them with pleats. Xiao is skeptical of such a statement and says with confidence that it is nonsense. Xiao turns her perplexed and slightly uncomfortable gaze toward the restaurant owners to watch them work and make the buns. She observes how the owner and his wife make the buns Ensign is talking about, trying to catch the details of this process. The girl pays attention to the board on which the buns are located and sees that they really have completely different textures and shapes. Xiao observes this with surprise. And at that moment, the main character realizes that she lacks basic knowledge about how to bake, because the shape of the bun depends on its filling, and that is the secret. He attracts Xiao's attention and extends his hand to her, which causes the girl to turn her back on the restaurant owner and his wife, stopping to observe the cooking process. With a mischievous expression on his face, Ensign thinks that with the help of fortune-telling, one can confuse a person who has not understood themselves, and invites Xiao to divine the future. He attracts Xiao's attention and extends his hand to her, which causes the girl to turn her back on the restaurant owner and his wife, stopping to observe the cooking process. With a mischievous expression on his face, Ensign thinks that with the help of fortune-telling, one can confuse a person who has not understood themselves, and invites Xiao to divine the future. Xiao immediately suspects that there is something fishy here and asks him what he is doing, but he says there is nothing of the sort, just fortune-telling. After thinking for a while, the girl finally decides to trust him in matters of fortune-telling. Anson looks at her hand and explains the meaning of the patterns according to Confucianism. For example, if the lifeline is long, then you will be healthy and happy. Xiao blushes slightly at this statement, not expecting such serious words from the main character. He marks a wisdom line on her hand, saying that she loves to fantasize and also that she will be happy. He considers the marriage line to be confusing. She must stay away from the guys running around her and must be careful. He makes a dramatic pause and says that he seems to have discovered who her ideal husband is, which surprises her. He takes her hand and tells Xiao, blushing, that her ideal husband is right in front of her. Xiao withdraws her hand and the main character quickly thanks her for the breakfast. The main character walks relaxedly toward the restaurant exit, preparing to go home, and Xiao asks him to wait. The restaurant owner's wife looks at him with a piercing gaze of obvious suspicion. He tells the owner's wife that a girl paid for him, and at that moment a policeman enters the restaurant. The policeman notices him and turns around, looking intently at the main character. The hero holds a toothpick in his mouth and in response looks inquisitively at the policeman. Anson leaves the restaurant and the policeman seems familiar to him, perhaps a friend of his parents. Xiao and the policeman are talking behind him, and the restaurant owner's wife looks with disapproval in the direction of the hero. He turns around completely confused, trying to understand what exactly is happening. The restaurant owner's wife begins to talk to the policeman and points her finger at Anson. The policeman suddenly turns around and looks at the main character along with the restaurant owner's wife. The policeman's eyes narrow with anger and dissatisfaction when he sees Anson. Anson seems surprised upon realizing it and falls into a stupor and shock. He says goodbye to Xiao and tells her that he needs to return home urgently because he has work to do. The main character suddenly begins to run and realizes that this policeman is Xiao's father. Early in the morning, a blue double-decker bus is at the stop of the Gancheng bus station and gradually fills with passengers. Anson and his best friend discuss the difference between girls in university and high school and the fact that, unlike school, university is the student's choice of study. The main character is not happy because his friend asks him too many questions, but then his friend mentions that he saw Xiao. As soon as he mentions this, Anson looks out the window and his friend realizes that he immediately became interested in the topic. From the window, he observes the photo of Xiao standing next to her father, near the open hood of the car. His friend says that Xiao's father's car broke down and the main character thinks that he hasn't seen her since the confrontation with her father at the restaurant. Xiao notices that someone is looking at her and therefore turns her head toward her observer. She turns around with disgust when she sees Anson, and at such a reaction, the main character falls into a stupor. The bus driver asks if everything is fine with the captain, and he tells him that the car broke down and that he wanted to take his daughter to the university. The bus driver offers to take Xiao, since he doesn't care about the way to his destination. The police captain's attention is directed to a voice asking him if his car has broken down. It turns out to be a former classmate of Xiao, who offers to help her by taking her to the university, as that will keep her safe. He says that there are a lot of people on the bus and that it will be easier to reach the destination by car, and the main character looks at this and thinks that the captain will refuse. The captain is flabbergasted by today's failures and does not trust the rich Gao, believing that he has bad intentions. The policeman decides to ask his daughter's opinion if she wants to go by bus or in Gao's car. The captain waits for his daughter's answer, at which moment Gao shines with hope and happiness. Xiao chooses to travel by bus and the main character has no words to comment on the situation. The main character invites his friend to move forward, asks his best friend to move so that Xiao can sit next to him. When my best friend asks why Anson doesn't change seats, he says that he gets dizzy at the front of the bus. Xiao is standing in the aisle between the seats and the main character ignores her, without noticing her presence. The main character looks out the window and his best friend sits with his eyes closed, still unhappy. The unhappy friend changes seats, although he is very angry about this. The main character looks out the window and the policeman asks to keep an eye on his daughter since their universities are close. Ansen says that he will definitely take care of Xiao, surprising Gao. The bus runs down the sunny highway at high speed without making any stops. The protagonista's best friend is not happy with his place because the curtain is broken and there are still 5 hours left for the trip. Ansen asks the driver to give a sun visor to his friend, since he won't be able to stand such a long trip under the sun. The main character visibly yawns and says that he got up early today, so now he will sleep. He closes his eyes and Xiao thinks he is trying to avoid talking to her this way. She walks away unsatisfied and thinks about how far Ansen's pretense will be enough. Without realizing it, the main character rests his head on Xiao's shoulder and falls asleep. Xiao's father's intuition tells him that something is wrong after his daughter gets on the bus. The bus also continues to travel quickly down the highway without slowing down. After a while, the bus reaches the bridge and in the distance, a boat is seen in the water. The shout of the passenger saying that it is the Yanhe Bridge wakes up Ansen, and he, sleepily, looks out the window. The main character is distracted from the view of the bridge and out of the corner of his eye, with evident interest, looks closely at the girl and realizes that, up close, Xiao is even more beautiful than usual. Ansen maintains a neutral expression and Xiao asks him if he was surprised by the view of the bridge. The main character looks away, as if ignoring her question. Then he turns sharply toward the girl and leans close enough to her, causing her to blush. Xiao abruptly moves away from him, with her eyes wide open and her face completely red. The main character looks at her with a slight smile and asks her if this bridge surprised her. The girl is still in a state of shock and looks at the main character with a clear blush on her cheeks. She is very embarrassed by what is happening on the bus. Ansen tells the girl that he has already been to this city and that he not only crossed the bridge by car, but also saw the local attractions, so it is difficult to surprise him with anything. The girl looks at him with some misunderstanding, but at the same time with interest. The main character looks out the window again, and Xiao thinks about whether he did it on purpose or not. After a while, the heroes finally arrive at the Xianji bus station and prepare to get off the bus. At the bus station, there are several different buses from which people are getting off. The protagonist's friend complains about the heavy suitcases, while the hero himself says he warned him not to carry so many things with him. Xiao herself stands awkwardly, surrounded by 3 large suitcases, surprised by the lack of things Ansen has, but he says that everything is at the university and his mother will send him the rest. The girl is surprised by the main character's ingenuity and realizes that it could have been done in a simpler way, and Ansen calls her naive. He gives her advice on how to get to her university and indicates the exact route. Xiao asks him how he will get to the university, and he replies that he and his friend have already decided to take a walk around. The girl freezes in total shock when the main character tells her that they will see each other later. She screams at the hero, calling him by his name, which makes his friend shudder in surprise. Xiao is furious and reminds Ansen that he promised to take care of her. She stares at the backs of the 2 heroes waiting for action, and the people at the station closely observe what is happening. The main character turns toward her, notably nervous, and looks at the angry Xiao, asking her not to shout. He slowly extends his hand to her, but she simply turns away from him in irritation. In an attempt to get her attention, the main character whispers to her that they must leave quickly before passers-by think they are a couple. This statement infuriates Xiao even more, and she looks at Ansen with indignation. Trying to smooth over the situation, the main character offers to accompany Xiao to the station and see her off. A tear rolls down the angry girl's cheek, and she declares that he wants to leave her. Ansen realizes that she didn't want to see him anyway. The main character tries to calm her down and tells her that he will help her carry her things to the station and will not abandon her. Xiao sharply bites his hand, which instantly causes a deep shock in the hero. Passers-by observe the situation and side with Xiao, believing the main character is a bandit. The entire trio of main characters sits awkwardly at a bus stop, surrounded by suitcases and packages. Ansen's hand, which is partially hidden in his pocket, shows a rather strong bite mark from Xiao. The girl looks guiltily at the protagonist's hand but says nothing about it. The main character looks at the ground in shame, believing that his reputation is ruined and everyone thinks he is a bastard. Xiao also feels uncomfortable, realizing that Anson wants to find a girlfriend and feels jealous. She has slumped shoulders and attracts Anson's attention by calling the hero by his name. The main character closes his eyes and sighs deeply, observing the girl's state. He opens his eyes and a slight smile is seen on his lips. He asks her if she is angry with him. Xiao looks at him with big eyes, full of regret, tears, and discomfort. She lowers her tearful gaze and timidly nods in response. Anson says that a missed walk through the park is not a problem, but the girl disagrees with him and shakes her head. The main character's best friend invites him to accompany Xiao to the university and meet up with him later. His friend flees very quickly, saying goodbye and leaving them alone. Anson is surprised by his friend's action while Xiao sits in silence. The main character calls the girl, who continues to cry, and asks her not to worry and to go with him. She quickly wipes away her tears with her hand and agrees to go with the main character. Anson takes charge of most of the luggage, leaving Xiao with only one suitcase. The main character looks forward mysteriously and intensely, covering part of his face with his hand. Anson slowly walks away from Xiao's dorm room, takes off his glasses and, exhaling deeply, says that the problems are over. Anson lowers his hand into his pants pocket, and from there the edge of a white sheet of paper can be seen. A beautiful girl gives him the hostel's phone number and tells him that he can contact them at any time, while a discontented Xiao remains in the background. The main character holds a piece of paper in his hands and smiles satisfied, thinking that it is impossible to refuse such a thing. Against the background of the wall, a red sign with golden hieroglyphics can be seen welcoming the students. Looking at the main entrance of the university, Anson thinks that he really missed a place he hadn't been to in 10 years. Among the crowd of students walking across the campus, a girl with long bangs can be seen who is in a hurry to go somewhere. The girl suddenly bumps against Anson's shoulder, causing the piece of paper they gave him earlier to fall from his hands. With notable irritation, the protagonist calls out to whoever caused the inconvenience. The girl immediately begins to apologize to Anson, and he cannot help but notice that she is immensely cute. The hero smiles in response to her apology and says that it is not necessary. The girl thanks him and very quickly flees the scene of the collision, which causes the main character's shock. Anson picks up the fallen piece of paper and tries to remember the girl he just encountered. The main character continues walking and thinks about how fast this stranger ran away. At the table there are two people sitting, an old man and a happy-looking girl. When Anson approaches this table, they ask him if he is a student, and Anson confirms it. The girl sitting at the table turns out to be his classmate, whose name is Yu Lin Yu. He knows she will be a curator for 4 years. Then the girl introduces the old man and tells him that this is the teacher, the curator Guo Hunyun. The teacher tells him to fill out the information and go to the dormitory. Anson finishes completing the paperwork while a crowd of students can be seen gathering behind him. The girl notifies Anson that he will live in the 3rd building. The main character thanks her and thinks that he wants to try to become a curator. Against the backdrop of several university buildings, the main character says goodbye to the girl and the teacher. Anson looks carefully at the various university students and observes that they are much more beautiful and attractive than schoolgirls. Looking at the girls, he understands what attracts the attention of other guys and why they go to this university. He sighs deeply and, with a bag in his hands, thinks about the fact that he first needs to earn money before trying to find a girl. The information board is full of various inscriptions and attached papers, where it is difficult to find a specific advertisement. The main character finally finds what suits him and hopes it will help him earn money in the future. The sunset sky slowly turns into night, and the lights turn on in the dormitory where the main character lives. The main character walks tiredly through the dormitory hallways, thinking about how many people there are, and he arrived late when he went to look for his things. Anson holds his things and smiles happily, thinking about how much time has passed since he was in this room. He puts his hand on the door, opening it slightly, letting the light into the hallway, and thinks that his neighbors are still the same. He smiles and cheerfully greets his neighbors, asking them if he was the last to arrive. He attracts the attention of 3 people at once, but one of them is especially happy to see him. Anson introduces himself and says which province he is from, and the guy in the yellow t-shirt shakes his hand happily. His neighbors are Jan and Chao from northern Liaoning, Guo Shaoqian from Sudong, and Dai Zhenyu from Haibei. The focus turns to the remaining 2 neighbors, Li Daman from eastern Guangdong and Jian Min from Jianyu. Dai Zhenyu is completely surprised that Jian Min has the latest Motorola model, and Jian Min proudly confirms it. The main character is glad that they have remained the same and have not changed at all. Jen offers cigarettes to the main character, saying that he is the oldest and Dai is the youngest. The main character listens carefully and invites everyone to number themselves according to age. When the youngest is given cigarettes, he feels uncomfortable. Li Daman and Jian Min reject the cigarettes, even if it is a sign of politeness. The oldest is surprised by their refusal, and the second one says that there are few types of cigarettes in the hostel. Jian Min says that these are very cheap and low-quality cigarettes, plus they are of poor quality. He begins to make recommendations regarding cigarettes, since there are lighter options with more flavor. The oldest is embarrassed and says that in his city he only smoked these cigarettes, but that he hadn't heard of others. Anson smokes quietly and thinks about how kind the students are that they can even argue about such a simple topic. The main character looks forward mysteriously and intensely, covering part of his face with his hand. With a cigarette in his mouth, he turns around and thinks about the 4 years of training that await him. He looks with disgust at the residence door and thinks that for 4 years everything has stunk here. His roommates hear the noise and turn surprised toward the source of the sound. They ask what Anson is doing, and he says that they need to keep the room clean. The oldest suggests making the hero the head of the room, and the others praise his decision about cleanliness. His roommates discuss how much responsibility he will have being responsible for sleeping, eating, and even resolving conflicts. Anson says he will have no problem accepting the position, and his roommates look at him with surprise and admiration. Against the backdrop of a night hostel, words of praise are heard toward the main character for his responsibility and courage. Morning arrives, and the sun shines intensely, illuminating the hostel and the surrounding streets. The main character wakes up to the sound of Jian Min's phone, which is too loud. Daman tells Anson that he needs to go to class today, so he needs a uniform. The main character's eyes open upon realizing, and suddenly he realizes something important. He jumps out of bed and says it is time to meet the girls in the group. In the background of the open door, several students dressed in camouflage can be seen. In the class, there is a large number of girls dressed in camouflage communicating with each other in small groups. The main character says that his classmates are not very beautiful, and Jian Min mentions that he saw a girl. The main character addresses his roommates and invites them to meet girls. Several of his roommates feel embarrassed by this proposal and do not answer him. He confidently approaches a crowd of girls and tells one of them that the military uniform suits her well. 4 girls communicate with each other, and among them is their curator, whom he already knows. He greets this girl and is glad to have found her again, and she recognizes him. The curator says that he is the only one among 27 guys who dare to approach the girls. The main character introduces himself and asks if there is anyone from his province of Ganshin here. One of the girls with a ponytail raises her hand and says she is from this province. Anson's roommates are impressed by his flirting skills and say that people like him are always popular. One of the girls says that the first year involves a lot of work and hopes that he can take care of his roommates. Confidence is seen in the main character's eyes, and he says that he needs to help the professor manage the group. He sees the girl he bumped into yesterday and asks the curator if this girl is from their group, who says yes and forgot to introduce her. The stranger blushes deeply. The curator says the girl's name is Sen Yu Chu and that she is her roommate. The girl first hides behind Yu's back and then leaves completely, and the curator asks him not to comment on this. Wu explains that this girl has no parents, her grades are low, and she studies on credit. The main character remembers that Sen was a diligent and intelligent student, but she always saved a lot. The main character remembers a moment from the graduation ceremony of the undergraduate students at this university. Sen borrowed an incredibly beautiful dress from someone and shocked the entire university. The main character remembers the details of the outfit and admires the girl's beauty. A thinks that their bonds will break in the future, but this time he will not allow that to happen. The main character looks forward mysteriously and intensely, covering part of his face with his hand. The professor coughs and thus attracts the students' attention, saying that the meeting has begun. The professor looks carefully at the students in the audience and invites them to get to know each other. A girl with long red hair stands up and says which province she is from. The protagonista's roommates begin to evaluate the girl and Ensign is perplexed by their behavior. The main character's attention is attracted by the uncomfortable and timid voice of a shy girl. Sen stands near the board and speaks briefly about himself and his home province. The protagonista's roommates are not impressed with the girl, but Ensign knows what is hidden beneath that mask. The professor speaks about the need to choose a leader as well as a representative for the second group. The oldest of Ensign's comrades invites him to become a prefect and the second roommate says that he will be able to help his friends. The group's curator, Yu, watches them and declares that they have no shame or conscience. E concentrates and thinks that he needs to strive harder because there are competitors. U turns to the shy girl and tells her to ignore the boys because they are stupid. Sen is very embarrassed by Yu's words and blushes, feeling even more uncomfortable than usual. Against the backdrop of a clear sky, the professor's orders are heard, which must be followed unconditionally. A man in military uniform declares that one of the heroes needs to cut his hair because he does not comply with the regulations. The indignant student defends his appearance and says that others also have long hair. Some students wonder if they will also have to cut their hair, which is causing some girls to get hysterical. The student asks Yu to clarify this information with the teacher. Hansen and his friends stroll through the stadiums, while the girls decide to defend their right to wear long hair. The main character sees Yu flee and decides that he needs to demonstrate who the real leader is. He calls the teacher and asks him what he is doing, which immediately causes the military instructor's reaction. The main character stands with his hands in his pockets, while his companions look at him perplexed. The main character introduces himself and says that he is a student of the second public administration group. The professor holds a pair of scissors in his hand, but the protagonist asks to put them aside so that there are no problems. The professor looks at him with a terrifying expression and tells him that long hair is not allowed in military training, which absolutely scares everyone. One of the protagonist's companions begins to be indignant, but the latter asks him to shut up. Ensign explains that the instructor was invited only to receive training and nothing more. He asks the instructor what his boss would think if he saw him with a pair of scissors. The instructor remains silent, and Ensign thinks that he is too afraid of the authorities to oppose them. A wonders if students are not allowed to have long hair, but if such a rule exists, he will shave first. The instructor remains mute and confused, not knowing what to say in response to the student. After a pause, the main character suggests using caps so that their hair does not bother them and does not distract them during classes. The instructor exhales deeply, but says that this time the students can go peacefully. The main character apologizes to his friend, at which he begins to be indignant. Through simple manipulations, Ensign still makes his comrade think about an apology. Chenglong awkwardly approaches the instructor and, without looking him in the eyes, apologizes. The instructor closes his eyes and awkwardly clears his throat, thinking about something, and then begins to form a group. The girls thank the protagonist's courage, and some even become interested in him. Dissatisfied, Yu takes Sen by the hand and begins to lead her away from the stadium. The main character asks his companions to form a line, encouraging them to move forward. The instructor calls the main character by his first and last name, clearly preparing to say something. The teacher says that the main character smoked, and that is why he broke the rules, so he must run 10 laps. The main character becomes gloomier than a cloud and one of his companions laughs at this situation. The main protagonist says that one of his companions also smoked, so he must run 5 laps. The instructor decides to punish both, so the protagonists are forced to run 10 laps. Both heroes are incredibly tired from running so much, but one of Anson's friends praises him for arguing with the instructor. The main character is upset and denies the argument, blaming Chenglong for not being able to cut his hair. To make peace with the main character, Chenglong offers him his help at any time, in addition to having dinner. At that moment, Yu decides to give ice cream to her companions and they thank her. The girls eat ice cream and discuss Yu's desire to become the leader, which is why she bribes people like that. One of the girls says that Chen seems like the best option, but another says it will be difficult to discuss problems with the boys. Without thinking twice, she says, "Let's vote for you," and the main character understands that it is difficult for the girls to vote for him. He observes the instructor and the professor, who are in the distance, and discuss something of their own. Anson smiles mysteriously and decides that he will have his own way of achieving what he wants, using more influential and important people for it. The teacher asks the instructor to notify him immediately of any problem and offers him dinner as an apology. The professor sighs deeply, clearly not expecting such a situation with the instructor. The professor is pulled from his thoughts by the voice of the main character, who offers him a cigarette. The teacher takes a cigarette and asks Anson about the conflict, and the main character confirms that the conflict has been resolved. The professor praises him for his initiative, but doesn't have time to finish when his phone starts ringing. The main character listens carefully to the conversation and understands that the professor has personal problems and is overwhelmed by work. The voice on the phone shouts at the teacher that he must come to help, otherwise it is possible that he will never return. The teacher looks at the phone in shock, and the main character asks if his wife called the teacher. Anson offers his help and says he can take the teacher's daughter, although the teacher has doubts. Anson insists on his help, but the teacher fears not knowing the city, but the hero assures him that he knows this city and that he has relatives here. After thinking for a while, the teacher asks if the main character knows where the Gulo kindergarten is. The main character immediately names the required route and even describes the area. The teacher asks if he lived nearby and the main character says yes. Anson asks the teacher to contact the kindergarten teacher and also tells him that he will show him his student ID to verify his identity. The teacher gives a phone to the main character and tells him that the meeting will end at the latest at 7. Anson takes the phone in his hands and says with confidence that the teacher can trust him. The main character turns his gaze toward the crowd of students and studies them carefully. She is talking to other girls and says to herself that sometimes it is worth resorting to other means to achieve a goal. The main character looks forward mysteriously and intensely, covering part of his face with his hand. Near the nursery, many parents can be seen taking their children home. The main character comes to the kindergarten to pick up the teacher's daughter. The teacher is suspicious of Anson and asks to call him so he can confirm everything. The teacher calls the teacher and asks if it is true that his student is supposed to pick up his daughter. Wo's father confirms it. The teacher looks at the main character and tells him that she will ask for his number. Then she turns around and continues listening to what Father Wo tells her. The professor notifies the main character that they need to name the number and the hero calls it without problems. The teacher confirms the authenticity of the number and ends the conversation with the child's father. She apologizes for her suspicions, but Anson stops her and tells her that there is nothing wrong with it. The teacher explains to the girl that the student has come to look for her and will take her to her father. Anson asks Xiao to accompany him and kneels to be at the same level as her. The main character asks the child to say goodbye to the teacher, which the girl does. The main characters go to KFC to have lunch and relax. Anson encourages the girl to eat more and asks her some questions. The girl happily eats a hamburger and willingly agrees to answer all his questions. A asks her if she knows her teacher's number and the girl says she doesn't know it. Anson asks her a question about the QR code, but the girl doesn't know exactly what it is. There is an awkward pause between the main characters and the hero smiles timidly at the child. Anson says it's time for them to go home because the girl has already eaten a lot, but Xiao asks him to stay a little longer. In the light of a night lantern, the main character advises the professor what his daughter is conveying to him. The teacher's wife thanks the main character, and the teacher himself holds his sleepy daughter in his arms, and the main character says there is no need to thank. The teacher's wife gives fruit to Ansen as a thank you and invites him to dinner, and the teacher himself offers to take the main character to the bus stop. The main character smiles and thanks for the fruit he has given him and the kindness shown. Near the university entrance, many students can be seen busy with their affairs and Ansen sitting on a bench. He sits on a bench and smokes, and the donated fruits are on the bench in a bag. The main character sees Xiao approaching him and tells her that it's time to sleep. The girl's gaze is drawn to the fruits that are in a bag on the bench. Xiao is happy with the fruit and asks where the main character bought them, and Ansen says he got them at a nearby shop. The girl listens attentively and a bit surprised to the protagonist's statement. She smooths her hair and asks him if he called her just to give her the fruit. Xiao asks Ansen not to spend so much money on her, and the main character says it's worth it. The girl wants to say something. She is interrupted by someone calling her name. She notices and sees a boy with glasses who says he didn't expect to run into her here. Everyone greets him and says they heard he works at the Institute of Geology of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. The boy with glasses remains silent and looks intently at the main character. After a while, he breaks the awkward silence and asks who the main character is. Ansen smokes and at the same time says he is a former classmate of Xiao Rongye. He hands the boy with glasses a pack of cigarettes and offers them to him, but the boy refuses. The guy covers his nose because he clearly doesn't like the smell of tobacco coming from the cigarettes. He points to the folder with the documents and says he has to leave so the professor can distribute topics tomorrow. Xiao explains to Ansen that they wanted to take this boy to the Academy of Sciences even before graduating, and one day he came to them looking for a laboratory assistant. The girl looks at the main character expecting some kind of reaction, but the main character keeps smoking. After a while, he still looks at Xiao and asks her what happened then. The girl looks down and says that he offered her to be a laboratory assistant. The main character sighs surprised and looks away from the girl. Xiao looks at him again and tells him that she didn't accept the job as a laboratory assistant. The main character does not react to this in any way, which causes a terrible irritation in the girl. Xiao begins to be indignant because Ansen smokes too much and didn't have that habit before and should think about the future. She asks him if he has any plans for the future, and the main character asks her again. Ansen looks at the cigarette and says he has plans to court a certain girl. Xiao blushes. Xiao asks if the girl is beautiful, and Ansen says that in all his years he has never met a girl like that. She asks what will happen if the girl rejects the main character, and Ansen says he doesn't plan to give up. Xiao asks if the protagonist is interested in the opinions of the potential girl's parents, but he says that he is only interested in the opinion of the girl herself, not the parents. She blushes and her eyes open with deep embarrassment and a certain awkwardness. She abruptly flees and tells the main character that she needs time to think. Ansen stares at Xiao while she flees and scratches the back of his neck, clearly surprised by her sudden change of mood. He stands still and wonders why Xiao needs to think, because he is pursuing Sen Yuchu. The professor greets the students and tells them that enough time has passed for the students to get to know each other and be able to choose a group leader. He states that initiative is encouraged so that each student can nominate themselves. The protagonist's friend asks him to nominate himself because he has already imagined his future if his friend becomes chief. The girl is the first to present her candidacy, and one of the protagonist's friends looks at her with disgust, thinking that he has lost his opportunity. Yu gets up from her seat and the teacher says that you need to greet the candidate. The students actively applaud candidate O, including her neighbor Sen. Wu introduces herself and says that it is possible that many students know her because she helped with registration. She affirms that she is excited and will always help her classmates in their studies and other matters, in addition to ensuring a better future for the group. the teacher thanks her for her performance and applause is heard from the entire audience, with Sen applauding in an especially active way. The girl returns to her place and the teacher thanks her for her speech and hopes that the next candidate adopts the same spirit. Sen looks up and sees the main character pass by, maintaining her attention on him for longer. The main character notices her gaze and directs his attention toward her, smiling at her slightly. Anson approaches the blackboard and smiles confidently while the teacher behind him looks at him with interest. Loud applause spreads through the audience in honor of the main character. His roommates actively support him and wish him luck. He begins his speech with a small joke, and the teacher realizes that this calmed the situation. Anson promises that he will communicate with each teacher before the exam, thus helping the students, and will fight for their scholarships and grants. He mentioned that there is a big difference between their university and the neighboring one, so they need to discipline themselves. Sen listens to his speech very attentively, especially when he mentions that he will provide them with a good future if they choose him as chief. The hero says that students can vote for him if they believe in Anson. The teacher points out that the main character has many advantages, such as organizational and leadership qualities. The teacher writes the voting results on the blackboard, and the students give the last vote to Anson. The teacher announces that, according to the voting results, with the 80 points, the main character becomes chief. The Juices are very disappointed with the result of the vote, and Sen tries to support her. The main character thanks everyone for their votes while his companions praise him. U reminds her neighbor that men are very unreliable and that she must not forget it. A disappointed girl walks across the university campus thinking that everything has lost its meaning. The main character shouts his opponent's name, attracting her attention. She shows herself dissatisfied with the main character, expecting him to show his new position. Anson affirms that he wants to invite her to dinner because they need to talk. The girl blushes from embarrassment and misunderstanding, and an awkward pause reigns between them. Yu asks him if he decided to become a prefect so that she would fall in love with him. The hero says that he only wanted to discuss the details of the control with the girl. To demonstrate his pure intentions, he offers to invite the girl to take her friend with him. Sen blushes in front of the protagonist while he says that he invited them to discuss something important. Wu affirms that he should not expect blessings from her and her friend. The girl reminds him that a few days ago he invited the boys to dinner but ignored the girls. Wu gets up from her seat and goes out to look for food, although Sen asks not to leave her alone with the main character. The girl blushes a lot and feels embarrassed, sitting in front of the main character, but he says nothing. Anson looks intently at the girl in front of him, as if remembering the details. The main character notes to himself both her physical qualities and her beauty. Sen finally decides to look at him, but does not stop blushing for a single second. The main character smiles at her in response to the eye contact, making the girl shudder. His smile grows while the girl burns with embarrassment. U returns to her table with a tray full of food and tells the main character the cost of the dishes. They begin the meal, and Yu asks the main character what he wants from her and what the essence of their meeting is. Anson smiles and says that he has something important to do with her and awakens her interest. Before the surprised looks of both girls, he declares that he wants to give the position of chief to Yu. The girl asks with incredulity if the main character is really going to transfer the position to her. Yu questions the suitability of the protagonist by asking him a direct question about this matter and looks at him with a certain contempt. He affirms that everything is fine for him, but he wants to know why she wants to be director. He is interested in her motives. After thinking a bit, she responds that she wants to help the students, but the main character does not believe her at all, who looks away awkwardly, as if she had been caught red-handed and exposed. She says that she wants to be a civil servant in the future, so she needs the experience of a prefect, which is valuable in a job of this type. He understands her motives and understands that she needs a career, while the girl cannot understand why he asks her this and what his true goals are. Anson affirms that he is only interested in money, to which Yu responds that she has no connections. A says that thanks to this position, his influence would increase, and the girl points out that this is an excellent tool to achieve her goal. When the hero asks if their opinions coincide, the girl tries to say that she is not like that. Neighbor Yu eats quietly and listens to their conversation, where the main character affirms that he only needs this position for 1 year because he is not interested in being chief. Sen is very embarrassed by this situation. The blush does not leave her face, so she thanks for the food and wants to leave. The main character tells her in a rather harsh tone to return to her place, forbidding her to leave. This causes the girl to panic and blush madly, and her neighbor, Yu, begins to actively defend her. The main character pushes a plate of peeled shrimp toward the girl and tells her that he bought it specially. The girl moves surprised, but the main character asks her to finish, pointing at the plate with his hand. She squeezes the cake in her hands and, blushing, mixed with panic, says that he doesn't need to do this for her. Who observes this whole situation with confusion, while the main character asks why Sen rejects the shrimp if she is really disgusted and cannot understand what is happening. The heroes look at her with embarrassment, misunderstanding, and some kind of resentment in their eyes, without understanding her reaction. A leans toward her and takes her hand, in which she holds the cake, and asks her if it really is so tasty, and that is why she wants to try it, which leaves the girl in shock. After trying the cake, the main character declares that the taste is not bad, but the girl still cannot get over the shock and looks at him with her eyes wide open. Stammering and sweating, Sen tries to say something to the protagonist, but she is interrupted by a shout from her neighbor, who says that the protagonist is not a very good person. The future boss does not understand this reaction and says that they still need to cooperate, and at that moment Yu is boiling with rage and her friend burns with total embarrassment. Tilting his head slightly, Anson says that he has always considered the most beautiful girl in the group, whose name is San Yan Yan. Anson continues looking at Sen and says that now he understands who really is the most beautiful in the group, while Yu says that it is a kind of strange and incomprehensible evaluation. Yu says that few people know the true appearance and beauty of Yuchu, so the main character must keep everything a secret because she is very timid and her friend is afraid of meeting bad people. Anson accepts this without any problem, but asks her not to look at him so closely when talking about bad people, to which she replies that all men have the same thoughts. The main character thinks that he took the correct strategic step and decided to continue establishing relationships with the potential boss, and after a brief pause he says that it is worth continuing the conversation. He offers Yu a deal in which he tells her that in her second year he will leave the position of prefect, but the girl asks him what guarantees he can give her in this regard. The main character offers her the following plan. During the first year, she can support everyone by winning attention, creating a pleasant image among teachers and students. She can also join the team of advisors who will help her pass the exams. Who believes that the main character is trying to blame his dirty work. The hero tries to convince her that everything that belongs to him will belong to her, to which she asks him what else he can promise her. Anson looks at her with a confident smile and tells her that they can divide the responsibilities, with her in charge of the smaller matters and him in charge of the most important ones. The girl looks at him with skepticism and asks him what will happen if she rejects the deal that the hero tries to offer her so actively. Anson is not fooled by her provocation and says that in this case he will work even harder so that she won't have any chance, because universities rarely change prefects. After such an attack, Wu has no words left and remains silent. But the main character says that he will help her in all matters and in all affairs. The girl looks at him with increasing irritation and says that he is clearly lying to her and clearly demands not to do it, showing her open repugnance toward him. The hero tries to take advantage of his charisma and, resting his chin on his hand, says that he is always honest and sincere with everyone, looking directly into Yu's eyes. Face to face with such a direct and intense eye contact, even the confident Yu blushes, as if her body were being impacted by such an attitude. The girl abruptly jumps up from the table and says that she agrees to the deal with the main character, and also tells her friend and neighbor that it is time for them to leave, and her neighbor silently agrees. Anson watches them move forward slowly and confidently, happy that his plan succeeded and that he was able to convince Yu to do what he wanted. From the establishment, which has a large red sign with white hieroglyphics, the voices of the students celebrating the end of military training are heard. The students actively clink their glasses and drink to the bottom, while there are many different classic Chinese snacks on the table. Gao says that Xiao needs to eat more and that they can meet more often since their companions study in nearby universities, but Xiao rejects his concern. The protagonist's best friend from school sits by his side with a face of dissatisfaction, and Anson himself asks him what is wrong with his mood. His best friend complains that in his finance university there are 62 people in his group and only 2 of them are girls, and his days are more like being in a monastery. Anson looks at him with his eyes wide open and asks, "What's up with those 2 girls?" Instead of answering his question, his best friend keeps drinking in silence, as if he didn't want not to answer. Anson pats him on the back with sympathy, understanding his situation, and tells him to keep drinking quietly without worrying about anything. Xiao says that the main thing in university is studying, not relationships. But the main character's best friend says that if there are girls available in her major, then it's better for her to remain silent. Gao invites the main character to sit closer to Xiao and asks for his opinion about her, to which the main character looks at Gao bewildered. Anson lightly touches Xiao's shoulder while looking for the chopsticks, apologizing for his actions in the process, leaving Gao and Xiao in complete shock. Ignoring Gao's cries of dissatisfaction, the protagonist's best friend thinks that he also wants to behave with impudence. Xiao says that they rarely get together, so they should definitely talk about their achievements. Gao is thinking about offending Anson, so he asks him to start talking about achievements and successes first. Anson slowly lights a cigarette, waiting for a dramatic pause before giving his answer to his classmates. He blows out the cigarette smoke, looks away, and then declares that he is the leader of his group. This leaves Gao in total shock. He clearly did not expect this from the main character, and Xiao looks at him with great surprise. The main character's best friend does not believe him either, and shouts that Anson is definitely lying. Gao tries to accuse the main character of dishonest behavior and says that someone like him could definitely not become a group leader. Attention shifts from the main character to his best friend, and they ask him about his academy. He mentions that the infrastructure of his academy is not bad, that there is a restaurant there where they can go together in the future. His companions agree in a low voice. Anson smokes in silence and thinks that his classmates are a group of sentimental children pretending to be serious people. Gao thinks about how he spent the whole night writing about the advantages of his university and hopes that Xiao will transfer to his university after hearing what she heard. The moment they finally ask Gao about his university, someone calls the main character. Standing in front of him is Yu, who informs him that after classes start, the group is offered to perform various activities and asks him what kind of payment he will accept as a prefect. The main character says he needs to leave to talk, and Xiao and Gao look at the girl with surprise. A informs Yu that the fee is 50 yuan per person and, despite Yu's doubts that it is too expensive, asserts that it is the right thing to do. He looks at the girl and asks her to give those 50 yuan to her friend, Sen Yuchu. For a while, the girl looks at him with an incomprehensible and blank stare, clearly intending to ask him a question. Then she looks away from the hero and turns her gaze toward her classmates, who are sitting in a cafe waiting for him. Ignoring the surprised Gao and the friend of the best hero, he notices that Xiao looks at Anson with surprise. Wu instantly understands exactly what is happening and looks back at the main character. Suddenly, she takes the main character's money and says she hopes the boss feels good. Anson is surprised by her behavior and change of mood. He gets up from the table and once again asks the main character if he really is the boss, obviously proud of him. Gao tries to belittle Anson's achievements, saying that prefects are just servants and are far from being members of the student union that he is about to join. The main character does not react to the attempt to offend him and says that he thinks exactly the same as Gao. The main character's best friend asks him about his new love interest, and Anson asks him, bewildered, when he got drunk. His friend continues whispering to him that, in his opinion, in this way Ensen is trying to attract Xiao's attention, but the main character asks him to remain silent. The companions begin to say goodbye and then offer to go together to a nearby station. In the background of the station building, there are huge inscriptions made with golden hieroglyphics, and in the background, the farewell is heard. Ensen is about to leave the station when suddenly the girl calls him, clearly wanting to say something. Xiao looks down as if she were arranging her thoughts before saying what she thinks. After a while, she turns her gaze back toward the main character, gaining confidence and preparing to express her thought. She shouts out loud to the whole street that she appreciates the main character's perseverance, which attracts the attention of absolutely all passers-by. Such a strong statement unsettles Ensen, and he, with his eyes wide open and surprised, against the background of the trees, the main character lights another cigarette with a characteristic sound. The main character sits on a bench, gloomier than a cloud, thinking that he ruined Xiao's relationship and now she considers him an extremely strange person. The action takes place during the day. The main character is on the street, near multi-story buildings. The main character approaches the office building and says that he is already there, near the Senton Express. He looks at the warehouse workers and notes that no dress code exists here. As a result, all workers dress however they want. He decides to take matters into his own hands. The character approaches the worker and hands him a cigarette. He asks if the director of the establishment is in. He takes a cigarette and replies that Director Son is on the second floor. The main character thanks him for his answer. The hero goes up to the second floor and enters the office of the director of Senton Express. The director sits at his desk in a spacious office and writes something on a sheet of paper. At first, he does not notice the hero. When the director directs his attention to the newcomer, he asks him who he is. The main character pulls out a sheet indicating the vacancy. He says he saw an offer for a part-time job. The director asks where he is from, and the main character replies that he is from Kaidi Yuan. The boss replies to this that someone from his establishment has already come. The director pauses, but then an idea occurs to him. He addresses the main character. The boss invites the character to return. The hero listens to him, but does not want to give up. A asks the boss a question, what he must do to replace that employee and get his job. Upon hearing this, the company director thought about the boy's proposal for a couple of seconds. He says that the main character wants to move forward. The character thinks that such a reaction on his part is a bad sign. A says he sees nothing wrong with wanting to take charge of a job because he just wants to earn money for himself. The director thinks that the main character is a bit strange. He says that if you look at his clothes, he lives quite well. He wonders why the main character needs to work in this case. The hero hands a cigarette to the director. He says that this is not a large office and that it makes no sense to check the complete history of each employee. The director responds that, although the main character is very persistent, you cannot simply substitute one employee for another. The director says that the company is doing well now and that they are delivering many packages. He, the hero, responds that that is why they have no desire to change agents. The boss says that if the main character can increase the number of daily referrals to 100, he will give him a job. The main character thinks that it is a good offer and asks the director if he has a business card. The boss takes out his card and brings it close to the main character. He takes it from his hands. The character turns around, opens the doors and leaves, saying goodbye to the person in charge of the company. The director returns to his documents and, after the departure of the main character, realizes that he is a curious person. Other actions take place in the streets of the city. There, voices are heard inviting neighbors to work in the animation club. The main character walks down the street and thinks. He believes that in the future, he will have to work with rich people and with many stores. He thinks that in university, the easiest way to make friends is to join some kind of club or union. He stands in a long line at the office, which is signed as the Department of Foreign Relations. One of the students notices him and recognizes him. They are surprised that their senior has come here. A pretty girl asks the hero if he came here to join the student association. He smiles hesitantly and says that for his group to have a good future, someone needs to join here. Hearing this, the girls look at each other and are not sure what to say. They take each other's hand and get ready. They say they will visit several more clubs. The heroes tell them that tomorrow he will be able to invite them to breakfast. He says goodbye to them in a friendly manner. In the line, a boy notices him and is clearly unhappy. The hero notices the negative reaction of this guy and cannot understand what caused it in his direction. The guy turns around and says nothing, and continues looking at him with a frown in silence. An invitation arrives from the commission to enter. The main character enters the office and stands in front of 3 people. He realizes that this guy who was frowning at him is one of the judges in the office. The boy looks at the hero with evident hostility. The main character wants to politely introduce himself and give his name to the commission, but he is interrupted in the middle of a sentence. The boy who had an antipathy toward him says that it is not necessary to introduce himself, since they only recruit girls. The main character is not satisfied with having been silenced. He begins to get angry at the selection committee. The girl from the commission whispers to the boy that she does not remember those conditions for being recruited into the club. He responds that he will explain everything to her later. It tells the hero that his commission often resolves problems related to business and sponsorship. He believes that girls are more suitable for this and that the hero should leave and not take up other people's time. The girl nearby points out that, in fact, they had already chosen a boy before to work on the commission. The main character begins to get angry and asks the boy if this is really what everyone needs. He is surprised by the hero's open reaction to what is happening. A conflict begins between them. The public is surprised and begins to closely follow the skirmish between the 2 boys. The committee member begins to get irritated. He thinks that every year it is more difficult for first-year students to keep themselves in check. It begins to calm the main character, and the main character says that he is completely calm, but that he wants to speak with the manager. The commission is surprised by this statement. He does not believe what he hears and asks the hero again. The main character approaches the boy and begins to tell him that this is a strange gender discrimination. It responds that girls maintain connections better. The hero says that the most important thing is the correct performance of the task and not the gender of the worker. He also says that if only girls are needed here, then what is this guy doing here and why do they need him? Those around them take the main character's side and tell him to leave. Suddenly a man appears behind them and tells them that it is time for them to stop this farce since this is a club. The main character turns around and looks at the newly arrived guy. He does not recognize him. With a dissatisfied look, the main character asks him who he is. He responds and introduces himself as the vice-president of the student union named Zhou Xiaoli. Zhou Xiaoli enters the office and says that if there is any problem, he can call security. The main character calmly responds to the vice-president that in this case it is time for him to leave. The vice-president asks, surprised, where to go. The hero responds that he himself can call security. Zhuo Xiaoli looks at the boss with bewilderment. He does not know how to respond to such insolence. He asks what group the main character is from and who his advisor is. The hero responds that he is the leader of the second group and offers to give him his number. The vice-president is surprised by such insolence from the rookie in his speech. Then the girls enter the office and defend the chief. They support him and say that they invited the boys with them. The girl from the commission approaches the main character and asks him not to fight. She says that he already passed the interview and now they have to wait for the result. The character calms down and smiles at the girl. He says that in this case, there is nothing to worry about. The boy from the commission begins to complain about the protagonist's behavior, his arrogance and contempt for the club members. The main character responds that there is no clause in the rules that prohibits first-year students from joining the club. The public takes the protagonist's side and says that if he can join, why are the judges stopping him? The vice-president says that all the responsibility falls on him and asks the protagonist if he could guarantee sponsorship with this position. The hero asks if Zhuo Xiaoli himself can guarantee it. The deputy responds affirmatively with a smug look. The hero says that in this case, he too can easily cope with this, which causes an indignant reaction from the deputy. The public takes the protagonist's side and says that it is time to give first-year students the opportunity to join without depending on their gender. The deputy says that they could use a little help from the first-year students. He thinks he can give the main character the opportunity to prove his worth. He wants to compare which of them will be able to get more sponsorship in total. The girl next to him says that Zhou Xiao has a better chance because he has experience working in it. The vice-president asks if the main character wants to participate in this financial competition. The hero asks with confidence what will happen if he wins and raises more money from sponsorship. He is told that in this case, he will be able to take the place of a club employee instead of a guy from the commission. The main character agrees. The boy is surprised. He did not expect such a response. The main character points to the people nearby and says that since there are many witnesses here, he cannot deny his promise. They are given rules. At first, a person is selected at random to calculate the sponsorship amount. Whoever gets more sponsors will win. They are asked if everything is clear regarding the rules. The protagonist's rival responds positively. The main character is not sure how reliable the system is with a random choice of one person, but he confidently accepts the conditions. The main character's opponent was assigned a place, a hair salon. The main character got a stationery store nearby. The enemy begins to walk away from them and says with certainty that they will still see who will win here. The rest of the audience watches from afar as the boy communicates with the management of the hair salon. Yan tells the hero that the hair salon opened recently, but that the store has existed for a long time. The main character tells her not to worry. The protagonist's rival returns and says with satisfaction that he has collected 200 in sponsorship fees and a 300 yuan coupon. The main character is not impressed. He throws his cigarette away, walks away from his opponent, and walks toward the crowd of students. A girl approaches him and offers help, telling him that she will start for him, since he is only a first-year student. She greets the owner and apologizes for disturbing him. The owner tells her to come in. She begins to explain to him that their club raises sponsors for the faculty. With a sharp and quick movement, the seller slams the table with a book. A loud sound is heard. He tells the student that he already has many debts and therefore cannot sponsor anything. The girl says that he takes out this book every time they ask him about sponsorship. The main character thinks that people find it difficult to earn money. The seller shows the book and says that if the students help him pay his debts, he will be able to sponsor them. The girl is upset. She is sure that they will no longer be able to get anything out of this man. The hero's rivals and the club members look at him with a smug air, confident that he will lose the competition. The main character addresses the shop owner and tells him that he can help him face his debts. The seller is surprised by what he heard. He did not expect such an offer from the students. The shop owner accepts these conditions. The hero says that he will resolve everything before the second half of the day. The seller gives him instructions. He must go to the shop across the street. There, he will approach the owner of another shop. There is a terrifying-looking middle-aged man with a large knife in one hand and a watermelon. The girls are scared by his appearance. They do not want to go to that shop and mistake the man for a butcher, not a fruit seller. The rivals are happy with this reaction from the girls. They think they will be afraid to go there, therefore they will lose the competition. But the main character confidently approaches the shop owner with an expression of confidence on his face and a slight smile. He smiles at the seller and tells him in a confident tone that he needs a promissory note to that effect. The action takes place near a market fruit shop. The heroes stand in front of the shop of a menacing fruit seller. The seller raises his huge knife over the fruit cutting board. He looks threatening. With a sharp blow, he cut the watermelon into 2 equal parts with a loud sound. The main character's friends do not like having to turn to this person, but the main character does not react at all. The friends begin to convince him that the debt is not that important. They believe this seller is not very willing to communicate. The protagonist tells them that if they are afraid, he can go alone. They are surprised by this statement. The protagonist's rival asks the vice president if he should win. He does not answer him. The main character approaches the shop owner. He looks at him while wiping his knife with a rag. He asks the main character and the two friends behind him what they need from him. The hero smiles politely and tells the owner that he does not need the fruit and that he needs money. Hearing this from the main character, the seller looks at him with a frown under his eyebrows. Then he delivers another sharp blow and cuts the watermelon into quarters. A loud noise is heard when the knife hits the wood. The owner looks at them and asks again what amount of money we are talking about. The watermelon juice on his knife looks like blood, making him look even more menacing. The main character's friends are even more afraid of this man. Despite this, the main character himself remains calm. He takes a small piece of watermelon from the seller's kitchen board in his hands and begins to eat it. Calmly and confidently, he tells the man that he came from the office supply store across the street. He says he owes the shop owner 3,500 yuan and has not returned them yet. The shop owner is surprised by the bravery and impudence of the protagonist. He finds it strange that he is not afraid of him at all. He asks when the shop owner hired the main character. He replies that this should not concern him and asks about the money again. The seller says he does not owe 3,500 yuan. The hero says he does what he was told. Then the seller turns his attention to the protagonist's friends and asks them what kind of people they are. The main character smiles and says that these are his classmates, and that if he does not pay the debt, they will have to take the required amount of fruit from him. The owner gets angry upon hearing such a threat and shouts at the main character, asking him how he dares to do this. He goes into the back room. He complains that he only owes 2,500 and that the owner of the stationery store sent him students. The main character's friends hope that the seller will not fight. We hear the noise of him looking for something among his things. Finally, he returns, shows the promissory note, and shouts that he only owes 2,500 yuan. The main character agrees with the indicated amount. The seller told him to return the receipt. The hero says that, apparently, he misheard and that the seller only owes 2,500 yuan. The main character says that now he has material proof of the debt and asks the shop owner to pay him. The rest of the students support the main character and tell the shop owners to return the debt. A begins to shout at them and asks them what will happen if he does not pay his debt. Seeing a crowd gathered around the shop, a police officer approaches them. A is trying to understand why so many people have gathered here. He turns toward the shop owner and tells him that he does not need to interfere with the rest of the trade or disperse the crowd. The seller says that everything will be sold out soon. He gets even angrier with the main character, but he simply stands there and smiles politely. The main character and his friends arrive at a stationery store and deliver the necessary amount to the shop owner. He says he never thought the money would come back to him and thanks the character and his friends. He extends his hands to take a bundle of bills, but the main character stops him. The owner asks what it is. The main character responds that, according to the contract, this money belongs to him since he recovered it from the debtor. The owner complains that his amount is too much and offers him 500 yuan. The students say they agreed otherwise, and the owner has to agree with them reluctantly. The main character received money for sponsorship. He looks with satisfaction at his rivals in the competition. He hands the money to the girl and tells her that he received 501 yuan from the owner. She is surprised by this. The protagonist's rivals are behind them and look at what is happening with dissatisfied faces. The main character looks confidently in their direction, then asks the girl what it is. The girl looks at him with disgust and for a couple of seconds says nothing and does not take the money from his hand. With a sharp movement, she snatches the bills from the main character and agrees with his victory. Voices are heard everywhere congratulating the character on his victory. The club members begin to leave, clearly upset by what just happened. The students shout at them that, according to the agreement, they must leave the position of president vacant. The main character believes they will not do this. The hero tells his friends that he will invite them to drink. They are happy about that. The rivals leave the building. The students are indignant because the club members ignored their promise. They believe they will not resign until they are forced to do so. One of the protagonist's friends watches the outgoing club president and thinks about the motive for his action. He thinks that the president cannot afford to lose authority in the eyes of the other students. Outside, it was already night. The main character is in the building with the rest of the students. They play cards. One of them shouts that he has gathered 4 kings and that the victory is his. His opponent loses. Yan slaps the main character. He complains that Yan beat him again in a card game. Another student comes running into the dormitory. He shouts the news. Zhu Chenglun and Zhou Xiao fought each other. Yan and the main character are surprised. Yan says that Zhou is not that kind of character at all. The main character asks where these two are. 2 people who fought are in the dormitory. A dense crowd stands near them and comments on what is happening. They believe that the 2 boys had been drinking before. Yan and the main question approach the crowd. The hero does not like what is happening and the fact that the problems do not end. Then the students hear a voice beside them. One of the teachers wants to pass through the crowd. One of the guys who fought was covered in scratches and bruises. He looks at the teacher in front of him. Zhou Xiao looks at the wall with disgust and pays no attention to the other students in the room. The main character enters the room. He turns toward teacher Go, who tells him that he was about to find him. The teacher looks severely at the students and asks the main character if he knows what happened here. The main character looks at the guys who fought and begins to think about the motives for the fight. He decided that Zhou Xiao had slandered him, which triggered a fight between 2 club members. He thinks that if he is acquitted, everyone will decide that Cheng Lun is to blame. This could lead to his expulsion. The hero is not sure what to do. He believes that the current situation could severely damage his reputation. He considers that this fight and its solution is a complex and difficult task to resolve without victims. The teacher tells the main character to stop keeping silent and tell him what he knows about what happened. A begins to address the teacher, but his sentence is interrupted in the middle of the phrase, without allowing him to finish. The main character claims that he knows what happened here, although this is not true. Cheng Lun is very surprised by this. The teacher says that the leader should not participate in this type of fight and tells him to write an explanatory note. He promises to do so in the afternoon of the same day. The teacher says that after the explanation, he needs to speak with Zhou Xiao, after which he will be punished for what happened. The hero apologizes to Zhou Xiao. He frowns and looks at the guy with hostility. The hero continues apologizing. At the same time, the doctor offers to examine the injured students. He approaches Zhou Xiao and begins to check him, touching his wounds and asking where it hurts. The teachers look at each other. The doctor states that everything is fine and that it is not necessary to prescribe medications or treatments. They begin to disperse the curious students gathered and tell them that it is time for them to go to sleep in their rooms. The hero tells Cheng Lun to leave the place of the fight and return to his room. He has a face of disgust. He accepts, turns around, and begins to leave. Only 2 people remain in the room, the main character and Zhou Xiao. They sit facing each other and keep silent. There is tension in the room. Zhou Xiao initiates the conversation first. A tells the main character to stop pretending to be a kind person. The main character does not respond immediately to this, calmly removing the scattered things. Then he addresses the interlocutor and tells him that he only did it because he is a university student. Otherwise, he would not help even if Zhou Xiao were dying. Zhou Xiao is surprised by what he heard. The main character says that he hopes someone else will use it. Then he turns around and begins to leave the room with his hands in his pockets. The students in the hallway look at him with curiosity. He begins to apologize. He says that he did not want things to end like this between them. Instead of responding to the guy, the main character gives him a sharp blow to the leg. Cheng Lun falls to the ground with a loud sound. The student asks if Cheng Lun is okay. He says that he deserved the blow and does not complain. The students, hesitantly, reassure the guy and tell him that the leader will forgive him since he took that step for his sake. In response to this, Cheng Lun simply sits in silence and looks at the ground. He was clearly very upset by what happened. At this moment, the teachers communicate with each other on the street. One says that he did not expect this. The other agrees with him. One of them says that the leader is of great help. Another speaks of the student union. A thinks that the leader of his class is too wild. The teacher says that Zhou Xiao is smart and decided to take a risk this time to prove that no one else deserves his position. The second professor smokes a cigarette on the street and agrees with the words of the first, wondering what will happen to his student. The other replies that he does not want to disturb the director, so he will not tell him anything. The action moves to room 602 of the university. The students gathered there to discuss today's incident. The main character is sitting on a chair. He turned his back on the others and said nothing to them. Chenglun apologizes to him. He says he lost his temper because of the drink. Other students support him and say that he already admitted his guilt. Another student notes that the hero keeps an unsettling silence. The main character hands a cigarette to Chenglun. Chenglun rejoices and takes it from the protagonist's hands. He begins to tell him, but is interrupted. The main character says that the incident was not useless. The students are surprised by this. The hero smokes and tells the others that starting today, Song Xiao is very limited in his actions. The action takes place in a university. The club members gathered in the office and invited the main character. They ask him if he is willing to occupy the position of vice president of public relations of the club. The main character responds positively. He says he will not disappoint them and that he will live up to their expectations. They say that, after Zhou Xiao recently resigned, a position became available after him. The decision to accept the main character was unanimous. They say he will take office once the vacation is over. The hero thanks them. Zhou Xiao is not happy with what is happening. He says nothing and begins to leave the office. Then he addresses the rest of the club members. He says that the main character is not as simple as he seems at first glance. Then he adds that they will regret their decision to accept the main character for the vacancy. The hero wonders if the boy wants to say anything else about him. He says no, that he does not want to say anything else. He says that in this case, they will meet again and begins to leave the club office. The others keep an uncomfortable silence. The club boy believes it is a form of gratitude. The girl says they ask her to support the main character's candidacy and that she cannot disappoint him. Other events take place on October 1st, during a national holiday. There is a crowd of students on the street. The main character says that the girl's father should not have met him. She replies that in that case, she would have to take the bus. They hear the driver say that it is time to hit the road. The car has 7 seats and belongs to Uncle Xiao. The student says that the Ansens need to act maturely considering their age. Chen is tired of this. The driver tells the characters to get into the car and move their luggage and belongings to the back. A girl is sitting in the passenger seat. There is only one empty seat next to her. The student is happy to be able to sit next to her. He opens the door and prepares to get into the car. The main character tells him to let him go ahead because he wants to sit in the back seat of the car. He lets him pass. He thinks that everything is going well and that he can hook up with the girl. Then he looks at the hero and sees that he was not sitting in the back seat but next to the girl, and now it is occupied. He asks him if he wanted to sit, but he replies that he managed to change his mind. The student is let through and told to get into the car. He is angry about the protagonist's deception, but finally sits inside. The car is preparing to hit the road. The student complains about the main character's behavior and says that he will never trust his word again. The driver tells the students to fasten their seatbelts. Little by little, they begin to move. The student in the back seat tries to start a conversation with the girl. He asks what club she joined. She says she is still not sure where to go, as she has too many options before her. He begins to brag and says that he joined the advertising club and that now he doesn't have to worry about anything. Another passenger says he wanted to join the organization club but was not accepted. The girl replies that she would like to join the student union. Then they ask the hero, to which he replies that he is the vice president of public relations of the student union. They reply that he is already the leader of his group at the university, and where else can you strive? He does not believe that the main character became vice president of public relations of the student union. The driver listens to the conversation and thinks that he is sure that the main character really took office, judging by his experience with him. The student begins to say that a first-year student would not be allowed to occupy that position. For that, he would have to be too outstanding. They ask for the hero's opinion, but he ignores the answer and says he does not want to talk about nonsense. After a while, the car stops on the street. The sound of the brake is heard. The students get out of the car. The driver says that this is where they say goodbye, as he still has matters to resolve. Then the car starts up and drives away from them. The students watch it go. The girl says she has a lot of things and they offer help to carry them. She notices that something is wrong with the main character and asks him about it. She seems worried. She says she wants her things to go to Chen Ansen. He looks at her without any visible reaction. Upon hearing this, the student says that he himself can help the girl carry the bags. But he is not happy about not being able to stay with the girl and help her, and that this opportunity has fallen to the main character. The hero thinks that he could have arrived earlier and not carry other people's things. But he helped a person save on train trips. He tells the girl to be careful, but she already managed to run and started eating the sweet on a stick. She invites him to eat the same, but he confidently rejects the offer. Upon hearing a negative response, she frowns and looks at the main character with displeasure. The boy gives up and with a deep sigh agrees to eat the same sweetness. Suddenly she approaches the boy and passes a stick with a sweet directly to his mouth. This takes him by surprise, but he begins to eat. For a while they keep silence and say nothing. She begins to tell him something about what happened recently, but is interrupted. The main character looks deeply into the crowd and sees someone. The main character's father is standing there, looking bewildered at the uncomfortable scene between the boy and the girl. The girl had not noticed him yet. The main character begins to think about how to get out of this situation. In the evening, more events unfold. The heroes came to the billiard club to spend time there and relax. The main character is near the billiard table with a cue in his hand. His friend says he did not expect them to find such beautiful places in the city. Then he notices that two attractive girls are coming up the stairs next to them. They tell that yesterday the protagonist saw his father while he was walking. He says that his father remained silent. He also says that his father knows Xiao. They continue playing billiards and the main character pockets the ball. After the shot, he hands the cue to his friend and tells him it's his turn to hit. He notices that the girls nearby are dressed very lightly and asks the main character if they are freezing in this temperature. The hero assumes they are already used to it. While the student plays billiards, the main character sits on a nearby chair and takes out a cigarette, lights it, and begins to smoke, releasing clouds of tobacco smoke from his mouth each time. One of the girls approaches him and speaks to him. She invites him to have a drink with her, points to her friend, and tells him it will be better if she seduces him since he is still innocent. After listening to her advice, she approaches the boy and tells him that they told her he has not yet tasted the fruit of love. He blushes and begins to mutter something unsurely in response to her, unable to formulate a coherent sentence. While they are having fun in the establishment, night falls on the street and the moon can be seen in the sky. They leave the nightclub. The hero's friend begins to complain that they only left at 10 at night. The main character advises him to wait until the new year. He starts saying that he doesn't need just any girl he met at a nightclub. The hero takes out a cigarette, lights it, and begins to smoke. He starts talking about what he did on campus, but stops in the middle of the sentence. A friend begins to ask him what he was doing on campus, but the main character does not answer him. Both notice someone next to them and look in their direction, keeping silence together. There are two girls standing there, looking at them surprised and offended. A friend invites the main character to flee from here, but he replies that it is already too late to flee, as they were seen. The main character thinks that since he and Yoonji are not in a relationship, there is nothing wrong with him going to the bar. A smiles and tells her that the party is over and that her house is in the other direction. She gets angry and says that he told her he was going with his grandmother. Hearing this, he does not know how to respond. He simply looks at Soonhye. Another girl says that when they were talking, Soonhye mentioned that she could go out with the main character, but Soonhye interrupts her. Instead of answering, Yoon-hye leans over and leaves the drink she was holding. She tells her friend to get out of here, and silently they begin to walk away from the boys. The girl begins to say that a new drink recently appeared in the store that Yoon-hye bought for the main character and blames him for the places he visits. She shouts at him and calls him a bastard. The main character does not understand what is wrong with this and thinks he did nothing wrong. The protagonist's friend invites him to catch up with the girl. The main character feels bad about what happened. A friend tells him that this way he could lose his girlfriend. The fruit drink that Yoon-hye left spilled on the ground. A little later, the main character decides to call Yoon-hye's father. He approaches the public phone and dials his number. He picks up the phone and the main character says he would like them to pass the phone to Seung-hye. The heroine's father looks at the door of the girl's room and she answers nothing and does not react in any way to the call. He tells the hero that Seung-hye is already resting, so he will have to talk the next day. Hearing the answer, the hero puts the receiver back on the public phone in silence, then returns to his place. The next day, in the morning, he calls Yoon-hye's house again, and the heroine's father picks up the phone again. He asks him to give the phone to the girl, but her father says that she left the house, so she cannot speak at this time. After a short time, he calls the same place again. The heroine's father picks up the phone again, asks who is calling. Yoon-hye herself is sitting next to him on the sofa, but does not answer her father's phone. The main character says that he wants to speak with the girl, but they tell him that she has not yet returned home, although this is not true. Hearing the answer, the boy tells the heroine's father to tell her that Chen will return that same day. The father whispers to the girl that the main character returns today. She does not react to this at all. She continues sitting sullenly on the sofa and ignores all the boys' attempts to establish contact. Her father is upset by this. He looks at her, not knowing what to say to her in this situation. He asks the girl what was the reason for the fight between them and what happened the previous day. She does not answer and continues looking at the ground in silence. It is clear from her that she is upset by what is happening. Hanging up the public phone, he begins to live there. He does not know what to do with their relationship. The protagonist's father says that her mother will return soon. He believes she will ask questions if she sees her daughter's state and mood. Instead of answering, the girl gets up from the sofa and says she will go to the shower. Her father watches her, upset. He thinks what to say to her about this. Finally, he asks her a question and asks if she and Chen are in love with each other. She answers aggressively and sharply that they are not in love, they never have been, and they never will be. The main character is packing his things to return to the university. He puts them in his backpack. His mother complains that until recently she was raising her son, but now he leaves mercilessly. He replies that he cannot do anything about it since he is the boss. She takes 1,000 yuan, hands them to the main character, and tells him to take the money. He tells her that he doesn't need finances. She asks how this can be if school just started, and he replies that he recently made 2,500 yuan. The hero begins to leave the house and tells his parents to take care of their health and not fight with each other. The mother looks at him not knowing what to say, closes the door behind him. His parents are left alone. She asks her husband if they have grown old, wonders why he decided this. She says that it seems to her that her son now has his own world, where he does not let his parents in, does not accept money, and does not need it at all. His father thinks that this is good because that way they will worry less about him, but the mother thinks that this is wrong. She asks if her husband's colleagues have daughters of the right age for Chen Anzen to marry. The father remembers having met his son and Yoon-hye together on the street as a couple. He tells his wife that his colleagues probably have daughters of the right age and still remembers the scene between the boy and the girl. Outside, it is raining hard and the sky is covered with storm clouds. The main character walks without an umbrella through a flooded street, covering himself from the dampness with his hand. He thinks about how unfortunate it was that it rained when he returned from his parents' house. In the distance, he sees a girl standing under the rain and getting wet. He recognizes her. She catches his attention and also notices the main character. She is surprised to see him here. The main character begins to walk in the direction of the girl. As he walks, he takes an umbrella out of his backpack. The girl thinks about what he is doing here. She feels embarrassed by him and blushes a little. She remembers their last meeting, which was very strange. Remembering the uncomfortable situation, she blushes even more. She feels very uncomfortable in his presence, making her feel even more uncomfortable. She begins to leave, but he stops her and tells her to wait. A says that he will not eat her and that there is no reason to run away from him. She simply blushes and murmurs. He just looks at her. The relationship between a boy and a girl is very uncomfortable. He says he doesn't want to leave her to eat alone and offers to stay and not leave. Outside, it is raining hard. The main character meets a girl who is hiding from the rain under a canopy. She looks sadly at nowhere, and he says that she cannot be afraid of him and stay with him. He says they should help each other when he is in a bad mood, and she asks him if he wants to go out to eat. He says there is a new dish in the cafeteria. When asked about the price, he replies that it costs 50 yuan. They decide to walk to the hostel, and the girl begins to urge the boy to walk faster. They walk under the rain, and she begins to run quickly. The guy stands still. She disappears from sight and then returns, but without an umbrella. She tries not to get wet under the downpour. The hero asks where her umbrella is, to which she replies that she gave it to her neighbor so as not to get wet. A is surprised and asks the girl if she doesn't need it herself so as not to get wet. She tells the main character that everything is fine. The hero thinks that this girl is a very simple person. They begin to walk together. The hero tells her to stay close to remain under the umbrella and not get wet. After a few minutes of walking, they arrive at the cafeteria where they were heading. They order shrimp and lamb for 2 people. In total, it costs 53 yuan. The girl hands the bills to the cashier. They begin to look for a place in the hallway to sit down. The hero asks the girl if she went to the hostel to get money, and she says yes. He looks at her bewildered, but says nothing directly to the girl. They sit at the table and begin to eat their portions in silence with chopsticks. The hero eats his order and looks at the girl. He asks her if she is hungry when he sees that she doesn't eat. She simply holds the food with the chopsticks and does nothing. Her face darkens and she gets upset upon hearing his question. She looks sad. He says that this dish costs more than the price of accommodation and asks her if she will eat it. She says she still has 100 yuan saved. In addition, she will earn a little money sorting books in the library. Furthermore, she will be able to save money and eat in a cafeteria. He asks her if she blames him for spending her money on food. She says no. He looks with curiosity at the girl's reaction, but says nothing directly to her. He tells her that in this case she needs to become his girlfriend. This surprises her very much. Surprised by the offer, she drops her plate of rice on the table. He looks at the bowl but says nothing to her out loud. There is an uncomfortable silence between them, but again he says nothing. She also keeps silence. She begins to feel embarrassed and to blush in front of him. She doesn't know how to respond to such a rare proposal. She says that she only ate a couple of bites and asks the main character not to force her to eat. He is surprised by her reaction, but accepts and changes the topic of conversation. She looks at the rice scattered on the table. She says she doesn't like forcing people to do things. She remembers how her friends convinced her that the main character quickly assumed the position of boss. They advised her to avoid him if she didn't like him. She looks at the main character but finds nothing to say. She is very embarrassed and ashamed of what is happening in the dining room. He looks at her with an interested look. An uncomfortable silence reigned between them again. She says it's time for her to leave. The main character agrees that he too has already eaten. He says he needs to carry an umbrella since the canteen is located near the hostel. He tells her to take home the rest of the food from the cafeteria. He walks away from her, opens the curtains, and looks through the window. The main character agrees that he too has already eaten. He says he needs to carry an umbrella since the canteen is located near the hostel. He tells her to take home the rest of the food from the cafeteria. He walks away from her, opens the curtains, and looks through the window. The main character tells Professor Go that when he was visiting his parents, he took 2 geese to cook. The teacher thanks him and tells him that he wants to treat him. The main character responds that the professor is too polite. The teacher addresses a girl playing on the floor. He says that Chen Ansen has come, her beloved brother. She jumps into his arms and says that he has finally arrived. He replies that he came here to see her. She takes his hand and says that she recognized the QQ of teacher Xiaoyu. Professor Go does not understand what QQ she is talking about. The hero thinks that next time he will have to give something to the girl. He says out loud that he should tell everyone what he discovered after dinner. A woman's voice is heard from the kitchen, saying that the food is ready and that dinner can begin. The main character turns toward teacher Go and tells him that he will go to the kitchen first. The teacher tells the main character that there is a girl in his group named Shen Yu Chu and asks him if the boy. The teacher begins to talk about her having problems in her family and that she has requested help for the poor, but the request has not been verified yet. He asks the main character if he can solve this problem. The hero didn't answer the teacher and only put a surprised expression on his face. The teacher asked if the director had any questions, and the main character responded that he had no questions. Other events will take place on October 8th in the university building. Outside, it is daytime. He sits with his friends in classes. Yan complains that it is difficult for him to return from the holidays. The hero says that he is also tired. Among the audience, a girl approaches him and tells him to leave the office and talk to her. She pulls him away from the rest of the students so that no one can hear their conversation. She takes a white envelope out of her pocket and shows it to the main character. She holds an envelope in her hands and hands it to the main character. He takes it in his hands and looks at the girl with curiosity. He asks her what kind of envelope it is. It turns out that it contains money for the dish they ate in the cafeteria that day. She says that she cannot accept such expensive gifts from him and therefore decided to return all the spent money. Hearing this, the main character puts a surprised expression on his face. He looks at the envelope and then at the girl herself. He smiles and tells her that he did not plan to give her money and that he gave it to her because she is his girlfriend. Hearing this from the main character, the girl blushes even more. She gets angry, shouts at him, and asks him to stop talking nonsense. She says that she never agreed to become his girlfriend. The main character is surprised and says that she did not reject his offer that day in the dining room, so he decided that she agreed to his conditions. She says she did not answer because she was very surprised by his impudence. The main character looks at the envelope in his hands, then takes out the bills and counts the required amount. He takes out a 50 yuan bill and returns it to the girl. The empty white envelope remains in the girl's hands. Seeing this, she does not understand why the main character did this. The hero says that they spent 53 yuan on food, so she only has to pay her share of the food. The main character says that he keeps the rest of the money and will not return it to her, since he was the one who paid for the food. The girl looks at the 50 yuan bill in her hand, clearly not expecting such behavior from the boy. The hero turns around and walks away from her with a confident step. The girl watches him go and thinks about how impudent he is. At the same time, she is glad that she does not have to spend all her money on food. She smiles sweetly and looks at the main character walking away. The action moves back to the university audience. The students are sitting at their desks. Yan looks at the main character, who is sitting next to him. He notices that the hero returned from the street in a very good mood. He asks him about it. The main character does not answer his question and only smiles mysteriously. Teacher Go enters the classroom and approaches his table. He clears his throat loudly to get the attention of the students in the room. All the students stop talking and look at the teacher. The room becomes silent. The teacher says that today they must choose a person for the position of monitor of their study group. He calls the main character and asks him to come up to the stage. The hero gets up from his seat and walks toward the teacher. He stands in front of the rest of the students and looks at them carefully. Teacher Go says that during the elapsed time, the main character has proven to be a good leader and has helped his group a lot. Therefore, he wants him to officially occupy the position of monitor. The teacher asks if the students have any objections to the main character's candidacy. All the students answer unanimously that they have no objections and support the teacher's choice. They begin to clap loudly to congratulate the main character on his new position. The main character thanks them for their trust and promises that he will not disappoint them. Teacher Go smiles with satisfaction upon seeing the student's reaction. He tells the main character that he can return to his seat. The hero returns to his desk and sits next to Yan. Yan congratulates him and tells him that now he is officially the monitor of their group. The main character says that this is only the beginning and that he has big plans for the future. The classes end and the students begin to leave the university building. Outside, it is afternoon, and the sun is starting to set. The main character walks with Yan through the campus. Yan tells him that the members of the Public Relations Club are waiting for him in the office. They want to discuss the plans for the upcoming university event. The main character says he will go there immediately. He says goodbye to Yan and walks in the direction of the club office. Upon arriving, he opens the door and enters the room. All the members of the club are already there and look at him as he enters. The girl from the club gets up from her seat and greets him with a smile. She tells him that he has finally arrived and that they are ready to start the meeting. The main character sits in the empty chair at the head of the table and looks at them all with confidence. The hero places the books in their place and carefully places them on the shelf. Then he takes a broom and begins to sweep the dust and debris from the office floor. The secretary wants to stop him, but Chen Ansen only smiles at her politely. Then he takes a mop and begins to clean the floor. The secretary works in silence all this time. Then he prepares hot coffee for the secretary while she completes the paperwork at her desk. While the hero does this, the whole morning passes and noon arrives. The secretary gets up from the table and says that he is going to go eat during the break. The main character agrees and together with him leaves the office into the hallway. After a short time, the hero returns to the secretary's office. The secretary asks him if he should have partners in the university now. A says they don't have dates now. The secretary says that it was cleaned well and that now he can return to the hostel. The hero responds that he only washed the floor and did not have time to clean the secretary's cabinet. The secretary thinks that everything depends on how much time the hero dedicates to trying to get help for Shen Yuchu. The afternoon approaches. It is 5:30. The main character and the secretary are still in the office. The secretary tells the character that he already cleaned the floor and the cabinet, and that now it is not necessary for him to come the next day. The main character says that he has not finished yet, and that he has only removed the exterior of the cabinet, but has not yet cleaned the interior. The next morning, the main character continues cleaning the secretary's office. They do not communicate. On the third day, the situation repeats itself. Again, they do not speak to each other. The guy keeps cleaning. Finally, the secretary turns toward him. She approaches the guy and asks him what his name is. The hero himself is cleaning the cabinet at this moment. A introduces himself and says that he is the leader of his group. The secretary invites him to smoke and he accepts. The guy lights the secretary's cigarette. They begin to smoke together. They are in silence. They are next to each other and only release clouds of tobacco smoke. The secretary asks if things really are that bad for Shen Yuchu financially. The hero responds that her parents died early and that she lived with her grandmother who could no longer earn money. He says that Shen Yuchu saves as much as possible on food and that she only spends 50 yuan during the month. The secretary listens to the guy and puts out the cigarette in the ashtray. She says that now she understands the girl's situation. The main character keeps smoking and answers nothing. Other events unfold in the office of Secretary Liu. The main character brings him breakfast and the secretary says that he shouldn't have done it. The guy tells the secretary to see here documents that could encourage students to start their own business. The secretary responds that the university actually has very few resources for this, and the only thing they can do for the students is to vacate the classrooms. The secretary says that now people open their own businesses to gain publicity. Then the secretary remembers something and starts looking on the shelf of her desk for something for the main character. She takes out the documents and says that the main character does not need to come tomorrow and tells the girl to complete the documents. The guy takes the documents for Shen Yuchu from the hands of the secretary and is surprised by the service provided. The secretary says that she spoke with the teacher and he confirmed the girl's economic situation. She says that the documents must be presented next week. The hero asks if documents from the city of Shen Yuchu are needed. The secretary responds that it is not too important. The guy begins to read the documents with satisfaction. This is an application to register to receive financial help for low-income students. The main character is glad to have been right and to have been able to help the girl. Other events unfold in the office where students and friends of the protagonist have gathered. They boast about which of them helped him this week. All three had helped him recently. The main character agrees that their help is extremely important to him. The students support him. Then he says that they need to organize events for the boys and girls of the group. The students love the idea and are enthusiastic about the opportunity to work on this project. The hero says that he advised them to go somewhere to eat and sing. The students think that this is a good idea. The main character says that he did not approve of this option, and the students, bewildered, ask him why. He maintains that they are still too young for this type of events and entertainment. Hearing this, the guys ask if the main character has a better idea. He suggests going to the Student Activities Center and buying 54 tickets for the cinema. One of his students dreams of being seated next to Sanayan, complains that he ran out of cigarettes and that without them, he won't be able to think normally. One of his friends offers to buy them for him. He begins to leave, but the main character stops him and tells him that he will buy cigarettes that are too light. He tells Chen Ansen not to worry and that he will buy him suitable ones. The main character approaches Shen Yuchu, who is sitting at the table reading something in a book, but she is too timid with him to say anything to him or greet him. He asks her if she missed him while he was away the previous days. She does not respond to this. He says that he needs help to get up to date with his studies because he has been absent a couple of days. A asks her if she heard him. She timidly and hesitantly tells him yes. Then a girl enters the office, begins to shout at the main character and tells him not to bother Shen Yuchu. He says that she arrived just in time. He has a form to help low-income students and needs help to complete it. The girl rejoices upon seeing the document. They are surprised that the secretary helped the main character to obtain the approval of his application. Shen Yuchu hesitantly thanks the main character for the service rendered. He says that when they have time, they will need to sleep together. She, in return, gets angry and feels embarrassed. When the girl filled out the application, she asked the main character when the finances would arrive. He says that there is no way to know it yet. The hero says that to unite the team, it is necessary to organize a joint viewing of movies. He says that he plans to buy 54 tickets in an activity center for youth. He also mentions that the girls and the boys will draw lots to see who sits with whom. He says that this method could divide people into small groups and unite them. Additionally, he suggests that this can lead to the development of a romantic relationship. He says that if the others have no objection to the plan, then that is what he will do. He begins to leave and the girl looks at him bewildered. She says nothing in response to the proposal. Then she turns around and says that, since it is a group event, no one should miss it. Shen Yuchu is worried, but her friend tells her that she should go because he helped her with financial assistance. She advises her to shout if the boy begins to bother her or behaves inappropriately. The protagonist announces that to unite the team, it is necessary to organize a joint viewing of movies and schedules it for the night of the same day. He points to the box with lots. A says that all seats will be drawn at random between boys and girls. The girls like the idea. They say that they haven't done this for a long time and that the event will surely be interesting. The students line up in front of the draw and begin to take one out of the box one by one. Some announce their results out loud. While other students make noise and discuss the missing seats, Shen Yuchu looks at her sheet of paper. There she sees the number 707. She remembers what the main character did not warn her about. He said he would have number 706 and that they would sit together, so there was no need to cast lots. One of the professors looks out the window and sees some boys approaching the girls and starting to talk to them. One of the students approaches the boss. She asks him a question and asks him what seat he got. He replies that it will be much more interesting if they find out after being in the cinema. She does not like this answer. She approaches the main character's paper and tells him to allow her to look at the serial number. She sees that the number 707 is written on the main character's paper. She looks at the paper for a second. She gets upset upon seeing his number. She tells him to forget it and go to the cinema. The hero does not answer her. He watches her go and holds his paper in his hands, not knowing what to do in this situation. The guys attend the event in disguise, with various accessories and decorations. One of them takes out several bracelets and the other chooses a chain for his neck. One of them asks if the main character likes his hairstyle. He thinks that my student lacks a suit to look like an adult. The main character asks the assembled students if they are ready. They respond positively in unison. Everyone gathers and begins to leave the university building together. The doors of the building open and students from the protagonist's group begin to come out. First come the girls who dressed in dresses for this event. The main character notices that the boys do not communicate with the girls, but believes that after watching the movie, several couples may appear. He looks toward the door. He wonders why Shen Yuchu has not come yet. Finally, she comes. She approaches the hero and asks his forgiveness for making him wait. Stuttering a little, she says she spent a lot of time studying. She was out of breath and tired. She turns around and begins to walk. She apologizes to him again and begins to follow him. He asks her if she wants to eat or drink. She responds negatively to both questions. The hero says that the movie is long and that she might be hungry. She responds hesitantly that she does not know if she wants anything. It tells her to go ahead and that he will catch up with her a little later. She is alone at the entrance of the cinema and waits for the main character to finally arrive. She wonders if he is angry with her. She feels alone and sadness is reflected on her face. The main character arrives from behind with a bag of popcorn. It tells her to go ahead and not to stand still. Suddenly she trips awkwardly over something and begins to fall to the ground. She gets scared and screams, but in midair, the main character catches her and holds her in his hands so she does not fall. She looks at him and blushes deeply because of the uncomfortable situation. He holds her in one hand and a packet of popcorn in the other. He tells her in her ear to walk more carefully, and she continues to feel timid and blushed at his words. Finally, he takes her hand and leads her. He tells her to follow him. Several dozen students are sitting in the cinema room watching a movie on the big screen. The main character believes that he already knows the plot of this movie, but wants to pretend that he does not know it. The boy is looking at Shen Yuchu. She looks fascinated at the cinema screen, without paying attention to the behavior of the main character. He observes that she has a very thin wrist, and that she does not eat meat at all. He thinks that the financial aid will be very useful to her. She notices his gaze upon her, and looks in his direction. Again, she feels timid and blushes with each contact with the boy. Chen Ansen puts his hand into the popcorn bag, but does not take out food. Instead, he takes out the girl's hand. She begins to blush even more because of the uncomfortable situation. The main character pretends that he doesn't care. He asks her to be quiet because the most interesting part of the movie is about to begin. She looks at him and is not sure what to do in such a situation. She says nothing and continues holding his hand, still embarrassed. When the movie ended, it was already night outside. The hero asks if the girl liked today's movie. She says that she liked it, but that it was too long. The main character says that it did not seem so long to him. He invites her to return to the cinema a little later. She feels embarrassed and cannot find how to respond to this proposal. He asks if her silence can be considered a consent. The girl gets nervous and says that that is not what she meant to say. He says nothing and looks closely into the eyes of the heroine. Shen Yuchu also looks at the hero, not knowing what to say to him. The tension grows between them. Chen Ansen opens his mouth and is about to say something to the girl, but suddenly they interrupt him. An athlete who passes running lightly touches the main character on the back with his elbow. From this point, he flies directly towards Shen Yuchu. She gets scared when he approaches very close and opens her eyes wide with surprise. Due to the push, he touches Shen Yuchu's face with his lips, which leads to an uncomfortable situation similar to a kiss. The athlete runs further away and apologizes for pushing the main character, while the boy and the girl are left open-mouthed. The boy begins to apologize to Shen Yuchu, but she cannot hear him and begins to panic. She is very scared by what is happening and, without thinking about it, pushes the main character. He begins to fly directly towards a pond in the park. She screams at him. The athlete looks at the situation with surprise. The hero does not maintain his balance, and with a loud splash, Chen Ansen falls into the water. Then he comes out of the water and says that she almost killed him. The athlete approaches them and asks them if everything is fine, and thinks that the boy and the girl are arguing. The hero says that the girl has an excellent reaction and extends his hand to her so that she helps him get out of the water. She accepts and pulls the soaked boy out of the pond. She begins to apologize awkwardly. He tells her to leave without him because he needs to return to the dormitory and change his clothes to dry off. The hero complains that, although the plan for the movie was a success, such carelessness led to an uncomfortable situation. He leaves the girl and on the way sneezes from the cold and the dampness. She looks into the distance. When the boss disappears from sight, the girl is left alone with her thoughts. She finds the situation funny and laughs a little at the embarrassment that happened between them. The hero returns with the equipment to the dormitory. In the dormitory, one of the students approaches the main character. He starts to complain about how miserable his life is. The boss asks if his life is really even more miserable than the life of the main character. Then he realizes that the main character is wet and asks what happened. He says that he accidentally fell into the lake and that it is nothing special. A student talks about how the girl with whom he was supposed to sit changed her ticket. That's why he had to sit with his aunt. The rest of the students find it funny, but the boy still cries over what happened. The main character calms him down a bit. The student continues to be sad because his girlfriend rejected him. He says that it would be better if she simply ignored him and didn't give him false hopes. He cries and sings sad songs about love in the room in front of the other students. Why would someone throw a pillow at him? The students complain that he doesn't let anyone sleep with his singing. The main character accuses the student of giving up and says that he wanted to invite him to play the shooter game, but now he won't do it. Another student takes the boy's side and says that he needs to be given the opportunity to speak. He remembers a girl who recently had trouble coping with an unhappy love. This girl was from a nearby university and lived on the 3rd floor. The hero asks for the address again. They tell him that that girl only received some minor injuries. He remembers his fight with his girlfriend a few days before. He thinks that it could be the same girl and goes to visit her. He begins to pack his suitcases and leave the room. The neighbors tell him that it is already late to go anywhere. He runs out barefoot from the dormitory. They shout at him that he forgot to put on his socks. He arrives at the correct building and says that he was looking for Jung-hye from group 303. The watchwoman asks him what his name is. He gives the name of the girl's father. The guard calls Jung-hye and tells her that her father wants to meet with her and that he has come to see her. She comes down from my room and goes out to the street with the main character, dressed in house clothes. She thinks about why her father needed to look for her at that time of the day. Then she hears a voice, turns around, and notices the main character. He tells her not to look around. He says that he only gave his name to her father so that she would come down to talk to him. She calls him a scoundrel, turns around, and is about to return. He tries to reason with her and tells her to discuss everything calmly. She responds that he should talk about everything with the girls from the bar. He says that she can leave, but that tomorrow he will come with a big sign and place it at the back of her dormitory. He says that he will pose as the father of her children and will say that he can take care of the kids. The heroine blushes and is angry with the proposed portal. She sighs and reluctantly agrees to talk to him and remains standing in the street. He says that he called her many times, but she didn't answer the phone, and that's why he couldn't explain to her what happened the night of their fight. He says that Sibo fought with his mother that day and asked him to go out with him. She asks if Sibo invited him to that bar. It costs her to believe it, and she is skeptical. The main character says that it was a mistake to accept this offer, and that now he understands that he should have rejected it. She asks him what he was doing in the nightclub. He says that he was only playing billiards together with Sibo. He says that if she doesn't believe it, she can call Sibo and ask him herself. Upon hearing this explanation, she looks in silence at Chen Ansen for a moment. Then she walks away from him but remains standing in her place. The hero does not understand what kind of reaction this is. She stays there for a few seconds. Both the boy and the girl keep silence. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. She tells him to accompany her to the library tomorrow at 7:30 without delay. Without giving him time to respond, she turns around and runs back to her student dormitory. The main character looks at her bewildered, without understanding what just happened. Other events unfold in the library the next day at 7:30 in the morning, where the main character arrived. He stands at the entrance and thinks about why he arranged an appointment for such an early hour in the morning. Nearby, he sees some guys with food packages in their hands. Reflect on the fact that they came to give breakfast to their girls. The doors open and 3 girls come out of the library. One of them is Sunhye. The hero does not know 2 more. The girl looks at the main character. He thinks that now he looks like those guys who brought food to their girlfriends. The guys who were waiting nearby with food ran towards Sunhye. They begin to hand her food packages. One of them bought an egg, another bought buns, and the third bought a full breakfast. Yoonji thanks him, but politely rejects the offered food. One of the guys leaves a food package nearby. He is upset by Yoonji's refusal. He says that despite her rejecting him, something could work out between them one day, but they interrupt him in the middle of the sentence. The main character takes the food that the guy left for her and begins to eat. The guy does not understand if this is possible. The main character continues eating, without paying attention to the protests. Then he asks if the guy would also like to invite him to have a drink with the food. Sunhye begins to pull him away from the poor guy. He protests and wants to eat a little more. Yoonhye's 3 fans stare at her, upset after seeing her boyfriend. After a short time, Sunhye and the main character meet at the entrance of the library. She asks the boss if he is interested in who these guys were before the entrance. He asks who they were. The girl believes that the question was not sincere and does not want to answer it. She gives him the bag and tells him that she will look for the book and that she will let him find a place for now. He sits at a free table in the library and begins to wait for the girl. He gets bored while he sits alone. She returns with books and says that she brought him books about his specialty. He responds that he is more interested in law books. She asks him why he needs those books if he does not study this discipline. He responds that students often start their own businesses and knowledge of the laws can be of great help in this. Then he says that he really doesn't want to read it and that he would prefer to ask a pretty girl from the corresponding faculty to read these books to him. The girl snorts. Then they sit in silence for a while she studies literature. He notices that a guy in the distance is watching them from the other side of the room. He asks her if she reads books about her specialty. She responds that she reads books about her specialty. He points out that they often come to her for help and she agrees with it. He changes the subject and begins to talk about how she covered for him this morning. She says yes, that's what she did. She left the book and looked at the main character, but says nothing. He begins to get up from the table. He says he wants to make sure that no one bothers her again. She does not understand what we are talking about. He puts his hand on the table and approaches the girl, who does not know how to react to this. He leans in and kisses her on the lips. She is surprised by this and does not do anything in response. She blushes a lot from embarrassment and shame, but she does not separate herself from the kiss. The action unfolds later in the main character's room. He spits blood into the sink. He looks at himself in the mirror and realizes that the girl almost bit his lip off. He remembers the kiss and thinks that for the girl it was her first kiss and that's why she got angry. A neighbor asks him if he has a broken lip. He responds that he just beat her and that there is nothing to worry about. The neighbor tells him to be careful. He also adds that soon there will be a check with Teacher Tao so that the main character does not forget. The main character hears the doorbell and leaves the balcony, saying that probably a girl is looking for him. He enters the room and takes the phone. He greets Yoonjae after hearing that it was her calling. She asks him about the condition of his mouth. She is worried about whether she bit his lip. The main character draws attention to the fact that his neighbor, sitting next to him, listens to his dialogue with the girl. He listens while they talk about going to the doctor together. The hero says that he doesn't have much time. The neighbor is jealous of their relationship and wonders if the boss has a beautiful girl. The action unfolds in the University Assembly Hall. Someone is calling Shen Yu-chu. The cheerful girl looks at her and tells her that her application for financial help for low-income students was approved. Shen Yu-chu thanks her and rejoices over the news she received. She feels much more comfortable with her female friend than with the guys. The girl says that Chen Ansen can be trusted, and the girl Shen Yu-chu agrees with this. The guys enter the room, including the main character. The girls notice them. He enters and also pays attention to Shen Yu-chu and her friend. She remembers the previous situation, feels embarrassed, and begins to blush, looking away from the boss. She remembers an uncomfortable situation when they touched near the lake in the park. The main character asks if her application for financial assistance for low-income students has been approved. Then he approaches and puts his elbow on her shoulder. A friend asks him why he does this. The main character responds that he is just saying hello. The hero says that it was his merit that the application was approved, but he tried as well. Who snorts upon hearing this. He says that although they already resolved this problem, they must still thank Secretary Yu. He leans toward Shen Yu-chu, but her boyfriend pushes him aside. She asks him how he wants to thank the secretary. He suggests giving essential gifts, such as folders. He says that the girl should also contribute to the gift. She asks what needs to be bought. He offers to bring dishes from his native region instead of buying them. A friend says that Shen Yu-chu constantly eats dried peppers and offers to give some chilies to the secretary. The girl says that Shen Yu-chu found wild vegetables near the dormitory and waters them daily. Shen Yu-chu blushes even more and feels embarrassed after hearing this. An uncomfortable silence falls. The boy asks why she had to say this. The friend says she decided it was a topic to say this. The boy advises peeling the vegetables and peppers and handing them to the secretary as a small gesture of appreciation. A says he doesn't know what chilies taste like, but half of the group has never eaten them either. Shen Yu-chu is surprised and asks if most people have never tried chili. 2 days later, the main character and his friends walk along the street and converse. One of the students complains that his game was not saved. A girl arrives, gets angry, and begins to complain to the main character. He thinks that she is waiting for someone here, but she says that Shen Yu-chu is crying for some reason. He is surprised and asks the girl the reason for Shen Yu-chu's behavior. She begins to tell a story. When the protagonist suggested giving chilies as a gift, she went to the garden. While working and picking vegetables, she was bitten by insects that left unpleasant red spots on her skin. She decided to leave the peppers on the balcony so that the strong smell would not bother the girls in their room. They brought this pepper to the classroom. The main character asks what happened next. None of the students wanted to try the peppers and complained about the unpleasant aroma of the vegetable. One of the protagonist's friends said that he had already eaten breakfast and did not want to risk eating something like that. The hero thinks that Shen Yu-chu burst into tears because of this. He looks at the girl who is sitting alone in a corner of the classroom. She says nothing and only looks down. There are no students near her. She also scratches her arm, which was bitten by insects while working in the garden. The teacher enters the office and tells everyone to take a seat, and classes are about to begin. The main character says he is forced to delay the start of the class a little bit. He stands in front of the audience and prepares to address the group. Dozens of eyes are fixed on him. Still upset, she looks at him with insecure eyes. The main character approaches a plate of chilies and opens it. He looks inside the bowl for a couple of seconds and says nothing. All the students closely follow his actions. He takes a pepper from the plate with his hands, puts it in his mouth, and begins to chew it. Shen Yuchu looks at him while he eats it. The surprise at the elder's action is visible on her face. The main character continues chewing vegetables with a loud crunch. Then he says that they are very tasty. He hands a bowl and invites Yan to try them, to which the boy agrees. The students begin to eat peppers. They speak positively about their tastes and say that one should not judge a book by its cover. Other students approach and begin to eat them along with the others. Shen Yuchu blushes upon seeing what is happening. She continues looking at the director and the rest of the students who are devouring the food, and little by little stops being upset. The students say that such a tasty dish could be sold. The others agree with this. They call the girls and tell them that it is a unique opportunity to try something unusual. Shen Yuchu begins to cry, but this time out of happiness. She dries her tears with her hand while the students eat her vegetables.